My name is Jack Scott. I am the Chancellor of California Community Colleges. Very proud to hold that position. I served 23 years in California Community Colleges. I was president at a couple of the colleges, Cypress and Pasadena City College. And then I was in the legislature, and for the past 3 years, after finishing my Senate term, I accepted this position, and I'm proud to be involved in all that you're doing. And I guess most of you in the audience are probably those from community colleges. We have 112 community colleges, and we have approximately 2.6 million students, the largest system of higher education in the United States, and I'm very proud of that. Let me tell you what this is all about. It's a town hall. We have held now, this is our 4th town hall as the Student Success Task Force. We held one in LA, one in Orange County, and one in Central California at Fresno. And we've taken very seriously the comments that have come in. In fact, as a result of the feedback we're getting, we have made a few changes in our recommendations, and we'll outline those this morning when Amy Supringer will stand before you and go over the recommendations in some detail, but we're going to have plenty of time for individuals in the audience to make comments. What started the Student Success Task Force, and why was it begun? Well, for one thing, the college completion agenda is certainly a big agenda throughout the nation. President Obama has talked a great deal about the fact that he'd like to see the United States once again be the most educated country in the world. It may surprise you that we're not now, but some other countries have passed us in terms of college completion or credential completion. Right now, nationwide, we have about, in ages 25 through 34, about 41% of our population has either a credential, such as our community college credentials and career technical programs, or a college degree. But a place like South Korea in that same age group has now jumped up to 58% and lead the world. And Obama also said, and I think that the nation that out-educates us will out-compete us. We know higher education is very key to the success of this nation. So we have formed a Student Success Task Force. This was as a result of a legislative bill, Senate Bill 1143. We formed this task force, some 20 members, very representative group, community college faculty, community college presidents, trustees, students, classified staff, you name it, within the community colleges, as well as some individuals from outside of the community colleges, academic researchers, a state senator whose chief of staff is here this morning, Suzanne Reed, has been one of our very faithful involvers in our task force. And so we looked at this whole idea of student success. Now, community colleges in California have always been known for their access, and I'm very proud of that fact. We have a very high rate of participation. We educate anyone with a high school diploma or someone over the age of 18 who will profit from a community college education. So we have been great in terms of access. We have, though, some ways in which we could improve completion, success. Let me give you one statistic, for instance, that of those who complete 12 units in our community colleges and either desire a degree or to transfer or get a credential, only 52% of them achieve that. So we know some of the reasons. Some of them we can't control. Maybe life circumstances intervene. When we take on the most vulnerable student population, it's going to be a little different than, say, the freshman class at Berkeley, where they take only the top 12.5%. But I know there are ways in which we can improve. there's no question that one of the things that we would all love to see is increased funding for community colleges. We took an 8% cut 2 years ago. Go ahead and clap about that. We took an 8% cut 2 years ago, and this year we're taking a 5% cut, and we're even fearful of what might happen if the revenues don't come in. There's a possibility that we could take as much as a $100 million cut when the Department of Finance comes out with its predictions for the revenues for this year. So we're all joined together in saying, look, we need to be better funded. In fact, I read a statistic that since 2007, here in California, per full-time equivalent student in our public universities and colleges, we've declined by $1,400. So that's a very serious issue, and we'll certainly continue to advocate for increased funding. That's certainly one of the jobs that people have placed on my shoulders, to go to our legislators and point out what we're trying to do. Well, the truth of the matter is that's the reason we've had to cut so many classes, is because we just didn't have the funding to do it. But we can't fold our arms and say we can't do anything. For instance, we're very proud of the fact that a year ago we passed Senate Bill 1440, which will improve transfer. It will say that between the community colleges and California State University, that we now, every community college will create a transfer degree of no more than 60 units. And CSU has promised that if you finish this transfer degree in one of our community colleges, you will have junior standing at CSU, and they in turn will require no more than 60 units. So that's the way in which we hope to make improvement. We've made improvement in that area, and we have some recommendations that we're going to share with you this morning. But as I said, we as a task force put our best thinking together, but we knew that we wanted to hear from the field. And we've heard from you, and Amy Supinger in her speech this morning will outline some of the changes that we've made. Now, what's going to happen with these recommendations? Well, they'll go to our community college Board of Governors, and that Board of Governors will in turn look at those recommendations, maybe amend them, and then they'll either accept them or reject them, and then we can start implementation. Sometimes people have been very fearful that, you know, they almost feel like that simply because we've made recommendations, they're going to happen tomorrow. Well, it's not that easy, folks. So we'll, number one, see once we finalize our recommendations, if the Board of Governors approve them, but some of them will call for legislation, and the legislative process is never speedy. Some of them can be simply implemented by pointing to best practices. Quite a few of the recommendations are merely encouragements to colleges to look at best practices in areas like basic skills and other areas, and some of them will call for regulations on the part of the Board of Governors. So I want you to listen to these recommendations this morning, and then I want you to feel free. We'll have a process by which you can raise questions or offer your suggestions, your criticisms, anything that you would like to say, because this is a listening tour, and that's what we're doing. Now, we were very fortunate in this 20-member task force. All of us had full-time jobs. We needed an executive director, and we were able to secure the services of Amy Supinger, who has a long history in higher education, serving on the Senate Budget Committee, budget subcommittee that dealt with all of higher education. So since she had resigned from that job, we brought her on full-time to help us in this task force. And she's the one that's going to be outlining before you today the recommendations, and we'll also give you a little detail about how it is that you can respond. So let's turn it now over to Amy.
So, applause for Jack. So a couple of housekeeping things first and foremost. Wouldn't be a meeting if we didn't start with that. Let me just talk really quickly about the agenda. So we are trying to spend a little amount of time talking to you about what the recommendations are, only because we realize that things have changed in the last week with these recommendations. We want to be clear about what those changes are. And the second reason is simply to just make sure we're all on the same page as we go forward with our day. So we have about 2 hours together. We've structured it so that the bulk of our time is actually talking with you and hearing from you. We have microphones up here on the stage that people will be walking around, so as we have some questions. When you walked in the door, most of you received the little quarter page or little half page blue comment card. What we've discovered is that we want to make sure that everyone's issues and topics get covered. That may not mean that you get to ask the question, but we try to batch them by topic. So for those of you that are here to talk about CalWorks, for example, we try to take those questions all in once. So this is really a way for us to kind of manage the flow and make sure that everyone's topics get covered. So when the microphones come to you, wait until they show up so that you can talk into the mic. Don't start talking before they get to you. We are being broadcast on the internet. We've had webcasts for all of our town halls thus far. So from time to time, we will sprinkle in some questions from folks that are watching online who were not able to be here. So those are kind of my mechanics, and we will have some people wandering around the hall once everyone gets checked in, collecting those blue half sheets from you. Any questions about that before we get going? Excellent. So we have myself and Eric Skinner, who is Executive Vice Chancellor at the community colleges, will be running through the quick presentation. We have our task force members, 4 of our task force members, sitting up here to respond to questions and talk to you a little bit about what the task force was thinking. That seems to be the bulk of the questions we get are, well, what was the group thinking when they did blah, blah, blah. So let me just do some quick introductions from your right to left. Jane Patton, the former president of the Community College Academic Senate. Ruben Lizardo, the associate director of Policy Link here in Oakland. Suzanne Reed, the chief of staff for Senator Carol Liu. And Kevin Feliciano, who is the president of the Student Senate for Community Colleges. So, give me 1 second here. I think I'm supposed to dim lights. Oh, can everyone still see okay? All right. So, the chancellor just walked through a bit of the background behind this task force. Let me talk quickly about the timeline. So we are in 11 months month 11 of a 12-month process. The task force convened its first work in January and spent about 6 months gathering information on best practices, what's working, what's not working, what's working in our own colleges, how can we take some of those best practices to scale, what do we know nationally about helping students to succeed. They then came up with a set of recommendations. You have the list in front of you if you grabbed it on the table coming in, about 22 recommendations. And now we're in the gathering input phase, and so we're very happy to have you here today. Before we get into the recommendations themselves, we have talked to people about how these recommendations work together as a package. And that's very hard, I recognize, for folks to sort of look at them in their totality. But we think that the whole in this case is really much greater than the sum of the parts. And it's hard because you look at a list and you say, where's my program? Where are my students? And we have asked people not to do that. We recognize that it is human nature. But think about how lives for students could change. We certainly hope and plan for the better if all of these recommendations worked together. So we divided the recommendations into essentially 8 chapters. I like to think of this as chapters 1 through 5 being sort of the what. What do we want our system to look like for students? And chapters 6, 7, and 8 being about the how. How do we go about making those changes? Through professional development, through some common goal setting and local scorecards, and through the aligning of resources. So chapter 1, actually before I get to chapter 1, the task force met last week a week ago on Wednesday, and in response to numerous comments that it had received from other town halls, from its online web system, emails, letters, all sorts of feedback that we had been receiving, it made a couple of changes that I think are important just to highlight before we get going. The first, and probably most important for many of you in the audience, is that there was a recommendation in Chapter 8, if you just look at that list really quickly, that has to do with consolidating categorical programs. In particular, we heard about the complexities of that proposal from folks in the CalWorks program. We heard about the complexity from folks who run the foster care and kinship programs, as well as others. So that proposal has now been removed. That said, one of the things that the task force wanted to make clear when it removed this proposal, this recommendation from its entire document, was that it did feel that our categorical programs still operate in silos, that there are redundant administrative structures, and they want to try to figure out a way to encourage programs at the campus level to consolidate some of those administrative structures and to make it easier for students to move between programs, so that you're not just a CalWorks student and that's all you see, or you're not just an EOPS student, or you're not just in a particular program. So they have certainly backed off of the categorical consolidation, but they are trying to figure out ways to try to make those programs more seamless for students. The second proposal that they are altering and have backed away from is in Chapter 4, Recommendation 4.1, that has to do with aligning course schedules to meet the needs of students. No, they're not backing away from that piece. But a subsection of that had to do with limiting the availability of non-credit courses to those that we define as college preparatory or career development. And there is a great concern about how ESL courses fit into that recommendation. There is a great concern about all sorts of other programs, in particular related to those with traumatic brain injury, other services for disabled, and the like. So that recommendation is being broadened and refined, so if anyone's here to talk on that piece. So those are the two biggies, and so that may alter your comments a little bit as we move to the comment period. Okay, so I'm going to do this as quick as possible. Chapter 1 has to do with increasing college and career readiness. The crux of this recommendation is that the community college system needs to do some coordination with K-12, or conversely, the K-12 system needs to start doing some coordination with community colleges on what constitutes college and career ready. And as K-12 moves towards its implementation of Common Core standards, we think that these two systems need to be working together and at the table every step of the way. The last time K-12 developed any kind of exit standards was with the high school exit exam, and for those of you that are administrators in particular, you know how well that turned out for community colleges. There's absolutely no relationship between what it takes to graduate from high school and what it takes to be college ready. This recommendation is designed to remedy that. Chapter 2 is devoted to strengthening support for students. What we discovered and what the research shows is that the sooner students get the supports they need when they walk in the door of our campus, the more likely they are to succeed at whatever their goal is. So in particular, we want to require students to complete diagnostic assessments. We want those assessments to be common across our system so that students who are swirling between campuses don't have to take multiple assessments on multiple campuses. We want those assessments to be diagnostic so that students don't necessarily have to be placed in a 15-week remedial math class when really all they need is a refresher course in fractions. We want students to participate in orientation, to complete education plans, and in particular, those students that show a deficiency in their lack of what we call college knowledge, or their ability to maneuver around campuses and large bureaucratic structures. What do they know about financial aid? What do they know about listening skills or note-taking skills? That we want those students to participate in some kind of a student success resource. On some campuses, that could be an actual student success class, a unit class that runs 15 weeks. In other cases, that might just be an afternoon on a Saturday for 3 hours, just depending on what the student's comfort level is. The education planning for every student to to fill out an education plan and to get planning. We recognize that that calls for us to do business a little bit differently than we have presently. It means a lot more counselors. It means the use of technology. So we're not saying that all students would fill out an ed plan online. However, especially with the clamping down of enrollments at UC and CSU, we have a lot of students who are showing up with A through G course patterns completed, who are a bit more sophisticated in their education planning, who could probably do an online tool, thus freeing up our counseling resources for those students that need it the most. Chapter 3 talks about incentivizing successful student behaviors. Some of our colleagues in other places in the community college field have deemed this the students don't do optional recommendation. And that is starting to require of students those things that we know make them successful. One of the pieces that we have here has to do with enrollment prioritization. Now, if we lived in a perfect world and we had all of the resources that we needed, we probably wouldn't have to prioritize enrollments. But we don't, and the task force believes we do need to start putting some prioritization. This is one that the chancellor can probably speak a little bit more elegantly to a little later in the day. But in particular, we want students who have an education plan, students who have a goal and a path. We don't care what that goal is. We don't care what that path is. You don't need to, if you're a transfer student or you're getting a certificate or you're completing an AA or you just want 3 courses in Microsoft Excel to bounce up your computer and job hunting skills, but we want you to have an ed plan. And if you do that, we will give you priority enrollment. So we will put those students above sort of the casual student who is just on campus to take a pottery class. Aligning course offerings to meet student needs. The crux of this recommendation is that different colleges set their course schedules in different ways. Many colleges look at a variety of factors in setting those course schedules, but some colleges don't. And some colleges will take the schedule as it appeared from the prior semester and sort of roll it over. They'll talk to faculty about what they want to teach and when they want to teach it, rather than basing their course schedules on what students need. What courses does a student need to graduate? What course does a student need to meet their educational goals? The vision here is that if all students are completing education plans, that colleges will have access to what courses a student needs, a semester out and a year out, and can start accommodating their schedule to much better meet the needs of students. That may mean that over time, some courses start to fall by the wayside. It may mean that we offer more basic skills courses, for example, but we think that this is a shift that would happen slowly, and we're also very conscious of the need to retain flexibility at the local level to offer courses in things that students may not know exist. So we've cited green technology and some other sort of budding career choices where a student's ed plan may not contain that, but that you still need course offerings. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg argument, so we're very paying close attention to that piece. Chapter 5 talks about improving education for basic skills students. So in this case, we've had an entire conversation, I'll just nip it in the bud, with the ESL folks and ESL faculty and whether or not ESL should be included under the definition of basic skills. So we're particularly sensitive to that piece. But overall, most of our students are showing up not ready for college. In an ideal world, our first recommendation about coordinating with K-12 would work in the long run, and this chapter wouldn't be needed anymore, but we're not quite there yet. So most of our students show up well below college level and need to take classes in basic math, English, writing. And we realize that when students show up 4 levels below college ready, that is a long process to put students through, and that many, well, most, don't make it to the end and don't make it to college, don't make it to their collegiate level courses. So we offer some suggestions on how to incentivize faculty to design different curriculum methods and some other kinds of innovative approaches. Yay, our last panelist is here. Rich Hansen, a math instructor from Foothill?
Deanza College.
Deanza. I assume that was for him and not for the We are now to the how piece of this, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Eric Skinner, and he'll run you very quickly through the last 3 chapters of the report. Right click.
Good morning. Again, I'm Eric Skinner, and I thank you for making the time to be here with us today. We're very much looking forward to hearing your input on this plan. So I'll deal with the next three chapters, 3 sections of recommendations, and this next one deals with professional development. So in terms of engineering this kind of system redesign that the task force recommendation envisions around modifying the way we teach basic skills, modifying the way we serve students through our student services, it's going to be critical that we utilize professional development to help bring our system along and to provide the training and the release time that's necessary in order for us to plan how we're going to pull this off. And in obviously budget constraints present some challenges here. It'd be wonderful if we had a large pot of professional development money in the state budget. We used to have some, it's no longer there. But one of the resources we do have at our disposal here is what's called our flex days. So it's roughly 3% of the apportionment funding that colleges receive is utilized to free up faculty and staff time in order to engage in professional development. So what this proposal essentially includes is a kind of a revisiting of the requirements and the standards around those flex days, and an updating of that with significant input from faculty of how to modify those standards so that we're sure that those resources are being fully leveraged to move this success agenda forward. Those standards currently exist in regulation, and so that would be a conversation that would play out at the state level. The next set of recommendations deals with improving our statewide leadership and increasing coordination amongst the colleges. There are a couple key recommendations here that I'll focus on. One is the development of statewide goals. The task force feels it's important that we as a system establish some goals for improving student success. So this is student success is measured by transfer rates, by degree and certificate completion, but also by goals in terms of making progress against other metrics. In terms of the task force is really focused on tipping points or momentum points. There are a set of intermediate progress points that research has shown are critically important, that if we can successfully help students make it to sort of intermediate points, such as completing a basic skills sequence, earning 15 units, earning 30 units. Those are some intermediate points that if we can get students to that point, significant momentum has been achieved towards attaining that ultimate goal. And so these statewide goals would include, again, not only those kind of ultimate outcomes, but those intermediate outcomes as well. Now, importantly, the task force feels that it's crucial that these goals also include breakouts by race and ethnicity. And so this gets at a key element of this plan that maybe we haven't focused on enough yet today, which is that as the task force rolled up their sleeves and started looking at this challenge of figuring out how to improve our success rates as a system, they very quickly arrived at the strong belief that we need to do that in a manner that lifts all boats. That we can't pursue the objective of improving our success rates at the expense of students that arrive at our doors less prepared. And the reality is, within our system, we do have pronounced equity gaps, largely driven off, it's most apparent if you're looking at issues of race and ethnicity, where students of color, but also lower income students in a broad spread way are achieving at lower levels in our system. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we're designing changes that not only improve overall success rates of the system, but also close those equity gaps. And so these statewide goals would have an explicit feature of kind of looking at these equity gaps and again, setting the stage for us to work on closing those gaps. The task force recommendations also call for establishing college level goals as well. So these would match up with the state level goals in terms of improving success rates. Comparable goals would also be established at the local level for each college. In order to help move this along and to facilitate local conversations around student success, the task force is also recommending establishing a new scorecard that would be issued to each campus, to each college, and it would measure progress towards those goals in each of the metrics that I described before, again, with breakout by race and ethnicity. Now, the goal of the scorecard is really to engineer a local conversation to focus not only campus leaders, and campus and staff, and students on those success goals, but also to facilitate conversations with the community. We think there are critical conversations that need to play out with our K-12 partners, that need to play out with the business community. And in some parts of our state, that is going on right now, but we think the scorecard can help to encourage those conversations more broadly across the state. There's a third element I'll quickly note here, which is the task force recommends the development of a statewide longitudinal student data system in partnership with K-12, with UC, with CSU, and with workforce agencies in order to have some broader longitudinal data about students. We think that the information that can be garnered from that is vitally important in terms of improving, monitoring how our colleges are functioning, how our students are faring, and using that data to help drive programmatic decisions to improve how we function. The last set of recommendations, the last chapter, deals with our resources. And as Amy pointed out before, one of the recommendations that had been in this section was the consolidation of categorical programs. So that the task force, after hearing the public input, after debating that issue more fully, decided not to go forward with that recommendation. Earlier in their process, the task force actually spent the better part of 2 days discussing performance-based funding. The SB 1143, the legislation that launched this process, explicitly called on the Board of Governors and the task force to consider performance-based funding as an option for improving student success rates. The task force took this direction seriously. They engaged in a full and robust conversation of performance-based funding. They listened to experts from around the nation, educational experts from other states that are implementing performance-based funding. And after considerable conversation, the task force made a decision that they, as a body, could not endorse performance-based funding as part of this plan. I would say it was a rich conversation, and I think even some folks who walked into that conversation with thinking that it was the wrong direction, I think it was enlightening on all sides. At the end of the day, the task force called on the Chancellor's office to continue to explore performance-based funding, to perhaps work on modeling some various options, but the long and short of it was the task force felt that kind of looking at the totality of experience nationwide so far in performance-based funding, there just isn't the evidence that it's the silver bullet and that we shouldn't build this plan around that. The last two elements within this chapter that I'll mention, one, the task force does support the creation of a new student support initiative. This would essentially be, I think it's fair to think about it as taking a matriculation program. So our student orientation, assessment, placement activities, counseling activities, and revitalizing that and putting additional resources behind that in order to enable the kind of student services reforms that are envisioned in this plan. So that the additional counseling, the work around the education plans, all that is going to take resources. And so putting additional resources into this new student support initiative is the way the task force sees getting that done. And that would need to be a top budget priority as we step into the negotiations for the next year's budget. And lastly, the task force has a recommendation regarding modifying the funding mechanisms for basic skills courses. This is actually another one of the recommendations that's in flux right now. The task force at their November 9th meeting discussed this, determined they wanted to make some modifications to it, but it seems that it's still moving forward in the task force proposal. Essentially what it would do is, the task force seems inclined to establish some new funding options for basic skills courses, whereby a college could come forward and say, we have a plan. Here's a cohort of students. We want to try something new around basic skills. Here's a different kind of model. We want to be funded for this pilot or this cohort in a manner that's it wouldn't cost the state any more money than would have been drawn down through the normal class, FTS funding allocation. But instead, the college would get that money as more of a lump sum that they could then apply to carrying out that basic skills pilot. And I think the task force really does envision this as a way of allowing for additional innovation and development of new, more effective models for providing basic skills instruction. And so so rather than being stuck in a model where the only way the college could get money was to provide a sequence of courses over time that in many ways kind of ends up shaping what that basic skills program looks like, because the funding model forces that structure upon it. Instead, again, the college could get the money in a lump sum and provide perhaps a more innovative delivery that may include heavier student services, that may include additional tutoring, that may include smaller class sizes. There are different models that could be employed, but the idea is to try to engineer some, provide an opportunity for innovation on this front. So that's the last chapter I was going to touch on. I'll turn it back over to Amy.
So I apologize, we went a little over our allotted talking time. Do not fear, it will not come out of your talking time. So we'll just consider this extending the time by a couple of minutes. So now we are to the part that you all came for, which is the talking question comment period. I have a stack of blue forms that have already been handed in front of me. Stephanie Puentes, who is the lovely woman on my right, has a microphone. And I'll start calling on people to the degree, I need to turn the lights up. Say my friends with 3C Media, who, by the way, we should thank them profusely. They have been fabulous to work with. So you can hand your blue slips of paper to Stephanie, and let's get this going. So I have a comment or a question from Dr. Carrie Compton from College of Alameda. Carrie, where are you? Oh, she's over. You are standing there. The mic is coming to you.
I'm Carrie Compton, Vice President of Student Services at College of Alameda.
Hold.
And my
There you go.
remarks are from my own experience and opinions, not necessarily those of our board, our community college district, our college. Closer?
Yes.
All right. First of all, of course, I commend the task force for its hard work, and many of the recommendations, if implemented, would actually, I think, contribute to student success. There's a couple of things I'd like to just point out, perhaps I overlooked it, and that is that there's a couple of pieces of legislation and public policy that aren't specifically referenced in the recommendations. One is the 1986 Seymour Campbell Matriculation Act, which I think still holds promise for what we need to do in the community colleges. You probably are very familiar with it, looked at it, but I think it would help if the field knew that you actually looked at some of the past documents and legislation that has worked, or if it hasn't worked, perhaps there was a reason for it, and looked at that. And then the other one is the document Basic Skills as a Foundation for Student Success in the California Community Colleges, which also has some excellent recommendations, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it would be helpful if we knew that these were specifically looked at and brought forward. And then the other thing I would ask for in your final report is more data. There's certainly numbers in your report, but more specific data to help us understand where some of the recommendations come from. Now, those recommendations that I particularly are in favor of requiring are matriculation services. I'm a student service person. I would think that these were excellent recommendations. Assessment, orientation, counseling. They should be mandated, but they can't be mandated with any real meaning unless you have funding, and I'm glad that you spoke of that, Mr. Skinner, at the end of your remarks. Not only funding, but significant structural change. Anyone who's worked to implement matriculation services understands their essential nature in contributing to student success, and you've talked about that, particularly for first-time college students. All the colleges have data and program reviews that support this. EOPS is a mini model of matriculation services, and we certainly have data for the last 30, 35 years that EOPS works because of the services that are concentrated on the students. So at this point, without increased funding and a change to the 50% law, you're not going to get the kind of behavior from the institution that I think is going to be necessary to mandate assessment, orientation, and counseling. A remark in the report states student-to-counselor ratios range from 800 to 1 to 1,000 to 1 in the community colleges. At College of Alameda, the ratio is 3 counselors to 7,000 students. Wow. We have a long way to go if we're to implement the recommendations of the task force, which we very much want to do. We don't, by the way, have silos in our categoricals. We're all there in the, on the ranch together, but we do have poor counselor-student ratios. So if we all agree that this is a major need in gaining additional student success, we need to do it. You need to change the 50% law, have a different percentage, whatever, but at least include those services that you want to have exist be on the so-called right side of the funding. Otherwise, it's going to continue on the very same. I'll submit my entire document to the task force, and again, I thank you for your recommendations.
So two things before we continue. The first is I was remiss in saying we're asking you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. The second is if you can hold your applause. I mean, we appreciate spontaneous outbursts, but it's going to cut into our talking time, so hold them. And then lastly, was there anyone on the task force that wanted to comment or respond? Nope. I think you made your...
Not yet.
Not yet. Robert Fitch.
Hi, my name is Robert Fitch, and I work for Disabled Student Services at City College San Francisco, and I also take classes in the Older Adults Department. Thank you very much for reconsidering the Section 4.1 and what that would do to non-credit. I'm here with some of my friends from Older Adults and DSPS, and we certainly hope that they are included in your thinking when you talk about continuing non-credit classes, and of course also the ESL classes. All of those non-credit classes are so critical. One of my concerns is that when you have a statewide recommendation, it sounds like you're suggesting that what works in Bakersfield works in San Francisco, works in Santa Monica, works in Redding. That doesn't take into consideration some of the demographics that really need to be considered. I'm also concerned about some of the recommendations as it relates to what we now know about the brain. The brain is still growing till you're 25. Seems like we're telling 18 and 19-year-olds that they should make their life decisions and certainly not stray or explore or experiment. On the other hand, we know about successful disability management, successful aging, and how the brain is flexible and keeps developing, and that you can keep learning, and the importance of lifelong education for our seniors and our new citizens and our disabled folks is just critical, and I hope you will consider that. Thank you.
Oh, no. Applause. Chancellor.
Let me respond to a couple of those issues that you're talking about. When we recommend that by the end of the first year that a student indicate what their program of study is, that's not unchangeable. Remember that, you know, if you said you were going to major in psychology and then suddenly you got turned on by the fact that you want to become a nurse, you can change your program of study. But all the research points to the fact that when individuals have a goal in mind and they state that goal, they're more likely to finish it. When I was president of Pasadena City College, in our nursing program, we had over 90% completion. I don't think that was because those students were smarter than everyone else. It was because they had a goal. So, as I said, you can look at the research, but the research says that when we simply say to a student, you just wander around and take whatever courses you want to take, that the likelihood of their really finishing that is lessened. So all our recommendation is that they state what they'd like for their program of study to be, not that we're demanding that then the next year and the following year they have to stay with that. But I need to address another really tough issue. And here's what we've got to look at, folks. Let's be pretty honest here. We are presently rationing courses. No way to get around it. The demand out there exceeds our supply. Our problem is that we're not always rationing in a way that is as sharp as it ought to be. We sometimes, and that's why we're talking about priority registration. Frankly, you can look at some of the courses we now offer, and I could call them out. I could talk a little bit about, for instance, quilting, ukulele for older adults, and on the list goes. Now, you say, well, those are good courses. They certainly are. But right now, in the first year that we took our cut, we had 133,000 fewer first-time students than we did the year before. Why? The reason being that individuals that were first-time students, they had to wait in line, and somebody who had been taking golf for 8 straight semesters got to register in front of them. And the legislature said very specifically to us that we should not cut courses in basic skills, in career technical education, and transfer. So if we're following what they're telling us to do, they're saying that's the primary mission. And by the way, the education code spells that out. It doesn't say lifelong learning is a bad thing, but it does not list lifelong learning on the same level as career technical education and transfer education and basic skills. So if we want to continue and say, yes, if the older adult wants to take ceramics or just senior topics, as I saw about one of them, I didn't know what they do. I guess they just talk about senior topics. And then we are saying, but we're shutting the door to those students who are looking for a job and want job training, or those students who want to transfer. So we do have rationing going on right now. And we've got to look at this, and that's why we're suggesting prioritizing registration. We're not saying those people can't take those courses, but they can't crowd out those other people. We're also raising the question, if someone has, over a period of 8 years, taken 120 units and completed 20, are we going to still, because that person's a returning student or a continuing student, are we going to put that person ahead of the individual who's trying to transfer to CSU or to UC or trying to get job training? That's what we're doing. So we've got to rethink ourselves here. And I will tell you that the public, the legislature makes it very clear what they consider to be more important. And that is they consider transfer courses, career technical courses, and basic skills to be of most important in the community college. So, you know, we can discuss this, and I'm happy to discuss it, but I think you're going to have to go a long way to convince the public and the legislature in general that for someone to take the second semester of quilting is more important than for someone to take basic chemistry.
So
Amy, I do want to make a quick comment to one of the gentleman's points, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm not going to speak to what the chancellor's talking about now, but to the point about system, practices being suggested from the state level, I think most people on the task force agree with the gentleman. We actually believe that our faculty and our support service programs are some of the finest in the world, not just the state or the nation. However, we do think it's fair for there to be some goals, and therefore the people in their particular colleges to tell folks, how do you actually improve success for this group or that group? That's fair. That's about making democratic decisions. And we think if, in fact, it is true what Mr. Scott is saying, that rationing is going on, that it should be a public debate as to who do we prioritize and how do we get at the needs of those students who've been left behind for so long, and that would include some of the folks that you serve in your program, sir.
So let's just stay on this topic for a couple of more minutes. We've got a whole host of people that wanted to talk about programs for older adults. Lynn Carberry, Valerie Howard, Shelley Glazier, Linda Tabor-Beck, Raymond Marcus. Perhaps we could just start with Lynn really quick, and maybe that will round out the discussion on the topic of courses for older adults.
I wanted to add to what the gentleman before me said, and I want to also address your concern about our dwindling state budget. And what we know about brain plasticity is that you have to use it or you're going to lose it, right? And so we want to keep brains of seniors stimulated to prevent them suffering from Alzheimer's, which is going to cost the state a lot more money than the intellectual inquiry of the older adult classes that are currently being offered. So just from a cost control measure, I would encourage the task force to consider the cost-effective aspects of the older adult program.
Okay, let me respond to that. Isn't it cost-effective to educate those students who graduate from high school? Isn't it cost-effective to educate the person who comes to you who's lost his or her job and wants retraining? So all I'm saying is, it's not, I think classes for older adults are very good things. In some cases, it can be community service rather than non-credit, because the state is underwriting all of the non-credit. But my point is this, when you really get down to it, and as I said, if you look at the education code does say that our primary mission was to provide academic and vocational training for our students. And then on down in the education code, it lists non-credit and classes for older adults. So it's not a question now, just keep this in mind. I'm not saying those classes are of no value, but I'm saying that as long as our colleges do not really put forward the transfer courses and the courses in career technical education that are for those, many cases, low-income individuals out there. These are students. We turned away 140,000 students just 2 years ago. We're probably going to turn away 250,000 students this year. They can't get in. And so some way, somehow, as we look at what's our most important mission, we've got to look at those students. I'm not saying that the people can't get in classes. I'm saying who should be able to register first. Because that's what's happening now. We have registration priority. And to merely say that because somebody is a continuing student, and as I said, and listen, I've gotten the telephone calls from reporters who asked me the question. Well, I know a couple of individuals who told me they're now taking PE down at the community college because it's a lot cheaper than an athletic club. Well, I don't know that that's our mission, to provide a cheaper, something cheaper than the athletic club. I think our mission is to educate people. So if we do something for older adults, fine. But let's don't crowd out, which we're doing right now. We're crowding out the student who is the student that is just graduated from high school, wants to get in a transfer class. What kind of waste are we perpetuating? What will that mean to the future of California when these students can't get an education?
So does anyone else on the task force want to respond on this issue? No? Okay. So I'm going to move on. If we have time, we can come back to this topic, but we've got a lot of other topics I think that that folks want to hear. So next on my list, I have Dr. Webb, the president at Laney College. Dr. Webb, where? Oh, there she is.
I'll try to be very, very efficient because I know that all of us in the room would like to share something. I want to also, as my colleague indicated earlier, from College of Alameda, my name is Elnora Webb, president of Laney College, and I'm honored to be here. I'm more honored to know that you are conscientious about and concerned about this system of higher education, to invest your precious time to come up with some recommendations. Many of them I agree with, and yet we all are concerned about any kind of unfunded mandate. We need to have had a section, just a chapter in here, in this wonderful document, to focus on the unfunded mandate and what we're going to do as a collective of professionals to identify a way to make some structural changes. It may not be implemented for the next 3 to 5 years because of the state crisis, but ultimately will lead to a better and more sustainable community college system in California. A number of us are concerned about moving away from the community in community colleges and becoming junior colleges. Transfer focus with a marginal CTE focus, because we know our CTE programs are highly costly. And we also know that they're highly effective in most areas across the state. It would be helpful to have in the front of this document, as you continue to revise and update for the greater public, especially for those who are decision makers in public office, to have an explicit reference to our priority, as well conveyed by our chancellor. CTE, transfer, foundation skills. And why did I say foundation skills versus just basic skills? Foundation, because it moves out of the whole category of just remediation to saying, what do we need across the curriculum? Like writing across the curriculum, critical thinking across the curriculum, reading, and we know the degree to which one is able to read, they're able to write better, communicate, think more critically, the degree to which one is able to analyze through the use of developing their mathematical skills, they're able to actually engage in a more robust way to create and sustain a life. And that's what community colleges we know is about. It's about creating and sustaining healthy lives and making a difference, not only in the economy of this state, but also the overall social, political context of this nation and beyond. So kudos to you. I think what's missing is an explicit reference to the 3 major mission of the community college. So there's no other discussion about that. And then 2, a robust discussion, even if it's not definitive, about the importance of changing the nature of the funding infrastructure, independent of what it happens to be, in order to better fund our system. We cannot say to UCs you have too few dollars and they receive $19,000 for full-time equivalent students. We can't say that you receive too few dollars for California community college, state universities, and they receive $13,000 to $15,000 for full-time equivalent students, whereas community colleges receive $4,000 to $5,000, and Laney College receives less than $4,000 for full-time equivalent students, and we're required and criticized, all of us, for not producing. You can't say that. And yet we're going to continue to produce and engage in what the Research and Planning Group, with Policy Link, with the California Community College System Office, with this document reference best practices. I like the fact that you focused on effective practices and sound research. It's illuminated in here. But like my colleague Dr. Compton said, we need to reference those sources so that folks know this is really based upon sound research, much of this. Not all, from my humble perspective, but the majority. So thank you, without further ado.
Thank you. Does anyone want to respond?
I
or
would
Ben?
just say, here to the need to put into our introduction a discussion about the math of financing. And so your points are well taken, Dr. Webb, and I hope that we can fit it in. And to that, I would add, and I've raised this with my colleagues, so they won't see it as an outside conversation here just because everybody's excited about this point. I've also raised that we do have to actually help the legislature especially and the governor grapple with the cost of actually ensuring that more students pursue the pathways that we have. And so their financial aid packages that, of course, the federal and state government are most responsible for needs to be accounted for in the conversation, because more students would go full-time straight out of college, out of high school, or if they're a returning student, if they could actually pursue that and weren't working 20 and 30 hours a week. So I think that's important, and I thank you for putting it on the table.
So next, Diana, I can't read your writing with Lifetime. Are you, oh, way in the back.
Good morning. I'm wearing two hats. One, I'm a community college graduate, and the other, I run a nonprofit that works with student parents, mostly single parents on welfare. And so one thing that I think, when I was looking at the student support part of it, I felt there was some stuff missing that would be really crucial to helping students succeed. My first semester at City College of San Francisco, I was completely lost. I didn't know there was a BOG waiver. I didn't know I could get financial aid. I paid my fees out of my welfare grant. Me and my daughter were living on $5.95 a month and $180 in food stamps. And halfway into the semester, I dropped out. So, you know, and I know students. I know one community college graduate who's a San Francisco State student. She has never gotten financial aid. And I know that, you know, overall, low-income students are the least likely to apply for student financial aid. And when you think about encouraging students to attend full-time, having money to meet your living expenses is going to be crucial. So I think that, you know, what should happen when any student applies to a community college, they should get information about a BOG fee waiver and a financial aid application the minute they walk in the door. You know, you're working with a lot of low-income students like me. Right, I went back to school 3 years later. Thank God EOPS. You know, I got the counseling is something that I've heard very low-income student moms say that the information they get from being in the programs like EOPS and the CalWorks program is awesome. If the CalWorks program had been in place when I was in community college, I would have had a totally different experience, because my caseworker sanctioned me for getting a Pell Grant. So to this day, Lifetime helps parents still with that same issue where they're getting sanctioned and losing their benefits for getting financial aid. And the CalWorks community college programs have been crucial in helping parents navigate that system, because there's this constant, incessant pressure from the welfare system to make your students work first. And this is one of the most successful programs y'all have, the CalWorks programs in the community colleges. If you look at the Center for Law and Social Policy did a study of CalWorks students. The Institute for Women's Policy Research in Washington, D.C. did a study of CalWorks students using our database. Because we probably serve 2,000 students a year, and most of them are your students.
Okay, I'm going to need you to start wrapping it up.
So, well, number one, please, you know, I've heard that you guys are considering taking CalWorks out of the lump sum
at the beginning. So at the beginning of the presentation, we said there is no categorical consolidation in this.
Oh,
so you can skip that piece.
Good, thank you. And the second thing is the student financial aid piece, that I think the community colleges could do a much better job letting low-income students know about the BOG fee waiver and Pell Grants and financial aid that they're eligible for. And that, I think, will be, you know, an important step in helping them succeed, because your students have a lot of other things on their plates competing for their time and energy. And the most that you can do to support them financially will ensure their success and completion.
So we do have a recommendation in here that talks about asking our financial aid directors, when they sit down with students to talk about financial aid, to show them what their financial aid package would look like if they chose to go full-time. Because what we realized was that full-time students tend to have higher success rates than part-time students, but more importantly, many people shy away from going full-time because they think it's cost prohibitive when in reality financial aid can help. One of the most compelling things that I personally heard from our myriad guest speakers through this process came from Stan Jones with Complete College America, who said by and large, nationally, students do not work and go to college. They work in order to go to college, and that those are two completely different things.
And then I just want to make a point in favor of.
I think we're gonna take the mic away. We've got about 100 other comments right here. So
Two words: campus childcare. More investment in campus childcare. Student parents are almost a third of your student body. Students with kids are the future of the community college system. So, thank you.
So while we're on that, does anyone?
I think if we stand down, then we might get more comments in. I won't make any more comments.
If
Because you already
If we-
answered her question.
I-
You answered her question, so if we go on to the next one, I think we might just make it easy.
Yeah, so from this point on, we're the ones holding the microphone, not you. So when you exceed your time, we're going to walk away. While we're on the topic of financial aid, Maggie Carrington? Oh, I'm sorry, Margie.
I'm actually going to be just reading a statement. I represent the California Community Colleges Student Financial Aid Administrators
Would you
Association.
like to just submit your statement to us?
No, I want to. I just want to read it.
Okay.
My name is Margie Carrington. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the California Community Colleges Student Financial Aid Administrators Association, which represents over 500 financial aid professionals across the state. We are actually excited about the recommendations and generally support the Student Success Task Force recommendations, but we do have a couple of concern areas. The first was in regards to the recommendation to consolidate select categorical programs, and we appreciate that the task force has made this recent decision to remove the recommendations as it could have been catastrophic to some colleges' categorical programs in light of this economic climate. But we do have ongoing concerns that when this recommendation is revisited in the future, consolidation of student financial aid funding could undermine the success of the students that you are attempting to help the most, and that students would not be able to receive the financial support that they need in a timely manner to be successful due to the capacity limitations in already strained financial aid offices. More than 1.1 million students in California community colleges receive over $2.25 billion in aid annually. These funds not only support students' success, but have a ripple effect on the economies and local communities. We have already seen delays in aid delivery as a result of recent dramatic increases in the number of aid applicants. These delays would be exacerbated if flexibility resulted in decreased staffing or decreased capacity with financial aid offices. Additionally, there could be significant financial and compliance liabilities in a complex and highly regulated aid program if campuses' financial aid offices do not meet federal requirements for adequate administrative capacity, including staffing. So thank you again for delaying the categorical consolidation recommendation, and we would encourage the Chancellor's Office to explore collaborative cooperation between categorical programs without flexing the mandates. Second, while we support the need for establishing standards for BOG fee waiver eligibility, we respectfully request that you include financial aid professionals as stakeholders in framing the legislation that would apply to satisfactory academic progress standards and identifying educational goals and administering a unit cap for BOG eligibility. Adequate consultation and thoughtfully coordinated implementation will result in clear standards for students to meet that are consistently applied to all community colleges while encouraging student performance. While seeming straightforward due to the federal and state regulations that govern aid delivery, there could be unintended consequences of the recommendations that could restrict student access and compromise student success. Do not take any action that will result in less funding for financial aid office capacity, and please include us in that conversation. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, I have a student from Laney College. Is it Adane Ortega? Adon. Okay, sorry, I couldn't read your writing. Mr. Ortega?
Yes, so my name is Adan Ortega. As she said, I'm a Laney College student, Laney College organizer, and I'm also an intern at Californians for Justice. And real quick, I wanted to start that, as the Chancellor said, there is a lot of budget issues that, you know, kind of create a lot of tension in making progress at community colleges. I'd like to suggest that it's not just budget issues, but budget distribution, how that budget is spent at the colleges, that also create a lot of tension. That said, I'd like to move on to some of the suggestions that we're making at Californians for Justice First of all, I support, California for Justice supports the, excuse me, the scorecard being disaggregated by race, ethnic background, age, income, because I think that would give a clear view of who is succeeding, who is not succeeding, and help us understand why. Also, as far as the education plan goes, I would like to know who's going to be held accountable for these education plans. Is it students alone? Students who, as other folks have said, work to go to school, who have a lot on their plate, who take classes and, you know, have a lot of work to do. What kind of support systems are going to exist for those students to make sure that their education plan is created after that first 2 terms? And as far as limiting priority, why are we creating more limitations for students? We're here talking about student success, yet classes are being cut, and with cut classes creates limited access. And how can you succeed with limited access to begin with? And so you want to transfer students, and at the same time, classes are being cut, and yet you want them to hold themselves accountable for succeeding. And then, you know, lastly, excuse me, I have this written down somewhere. Lastly, our last recommendation is, as far as BOG waivers, you know, having limitations set for students, success limitations on BOG waivers. What sort of safeguards will be put into place for academically challenged students on receiving these BOG waivers? Are students just going to be pushed out if they don't meet your recommendations? How does that create student success? To me, that sounds like that, you know, if students don't succeed, you don't want them around. And, you know, just one more as far as financial aid. Like Ruben said, you know, if students could get more financial aid, they would be more willing to take more classes. A lot of folks are struggling out here. Financial aid doesn't just help folks go to class, it helps them get their books, it helps them eat, you know, lunch, because you need to eat to study, and it also helps a lot of folks pay rent. And so I just want to remind everybody that this is about student success. I'm a student. Can I see how many students are in here? All right.
Does anyone, Jane?
I just want to say that I love hearing the comments from all of you, and I'm delighted that you showed up. I want you to know that we really did discuss a lot of these issues, and so know that that your concerns are our concerns as well. They really are. I think a huge amount of the challenge will be in the implementation of any recommendations. And I would encourage you all to participate when things become implementation concerns, because how things play out is really going to make a difference. It's one thing to have recommendations and goals. It's another thing to make it happen. So I hope that any and all of you who are around at the time that implementation begins, make sure that your voices are being heard then.
Thank you, Jane. One of the things you brought up in your comment had to do with the student success scorecard, and there was someone else that wanted to talk about that. Nguyen, is it Ornati? Orate, okay.
So as we read the document, it talks about access, success, the scorecard, success scorecard. 7.3, implement a student success scorecard, indicates in calculating gains in performance, each college would be compared against its own past performance, thus neutralize differences associated with local economic variables. I just wanted to point out that when we say that, it's really not taking into account the SES of our students, socioeconomic statuses of our students that contribute to the challenges that will maintain given the limited resources within the college. When I say maintain, we are already seeing low success rates within our urban schools. So by saying that, we're simply measuring against those past performances and not really talking about equity or critically analyzing equity as we see those conditions in the urban context. Then the failure then is localized, removing the responsibility from the institution, from the system, if we say that we're looking at just simply the local context in terms of demographics and economic challenges. So we need to still hold both the local, the college is responsible, but at the same time, where's the accountability within the institution? Then this connects to what Dr. Webb and Mr. Ortega had mentioned earlier, that we need to really look at, if we are now developing a new metrics, the student success metrics, which is the scorecard, we also need to see in the document a new metrics on the distribution of resources within community colleges, right? It's not equally the same when we talk about a condition in Oakland, in Richmond, in LA, for instance, compared to other community colleges. So how can we look and develop a new metrics of allocation of resources within those institutions? That way we can equitably see access and success for those students as well.
Thank you. Chancellor, you wanted to reply?
Yeah, I just wanted, what we were trying to say there, if it's not clear, is that we're not comparing this college, College X, to College Y, because College Y might be located in a much more affluent area and therefore have greater possibilities of success. What we really want to do is have a scorecard so College X can show how it is improving in its situation. It's not comparing it. And as far as allocation of resources within each college, that's what local control is all about. There are certain ways in which colleges are told you should spend your money, but there's a lot of flexibility so that, say, Merritt College in Oakland and, say, Bakersfield College, each of the trustees in those areas determine the allocation of the resources that are given to them. And I just wanted you to know that that scorecard is simply, and we mentioned some of the metrics that would be used, is not going to compare College X to College Y. It's going to say to College X, here you are now, what are ways in which you can improve the number of students that complete 15 units? How is it that you can, say if there's a great disparity between, say, Latino and African American students and, say, white and Asian students, how are ways in which you can close the achievement gap? Those are the kind of questions that a scorecard will do. It doesn't assume that anybody, some great person in the sky is going to tell that college what it must do. It's just being transparent as to what's happening in that college and then actually encouraging that college to do what it can to improve in those areas. I hope that was a little bit of an explanation of what the scorecard's all about.
I think Ruben?
I do want to underscore, I think I also heard, and I don't think this is going to fly, probably not even in this room, and perhaps even less at the legislature. I think I understood Mr. Orante to be saying also that in the allocation of state dollars, there be some kind of attempt to look at need in local places. And I'm not saying that's going to actually happen, but I think I heard that basically allocation of dollars that are controlled at the state level beyond what everybody gets. Maybe it's a competitive grant program of sorts that the governor might have through WIA, that priority be given to places that have higher need. Again, I just wanted to clarify. I think that's what I heard, not saying that that's what we're going to achieve in our state, but did I understand that part right?
Okay, so next person, Galina Gerasimova. Galina, are you here? You want to talk about ESL? We're getting to you.
My name is Galina. I'm a faculty member at City College of San Francisco. I work for the SPS department and I teach computer adaptation and applications. I'm also a former student at City College San Francisco, and I was ESL non-credit student. That's how I started. And I don't know if it's a success story or not, but at least I had an opportunity to come to this country, and I was really, really impressed that government cares and give me this opportunity to take classes. Because otherwise, I don't know when I would be right now. I probably would sit in welfare, and now I'm giving back to my students, to the community, what I received before. So, and also I would say that I want to point out that I came here as an older person, not young. So you need more time when you came here and you don't know, you cannot speak language. You need more time to learn because it's a difference between young people and adult people how we learn language. So please consider that. Consider that people at older age, when they come here, they need more support. and we cannot afford to pay for the classes. We need time to learn language, to find a job. Otherwise, we will be abused by employees who are paying really little money because they don't know we don't have a chance to find better job. So,
Thank you. Sonia Frenetta? Also from Laney College.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Fernetta from Laney College. I'm the Faculty Senate President. I also teach ESL. I'm very concerned about student access. And I know some of my colleagues and others have spoken about that, including the previous speaker. But I would like you to just think about this idea. How many people are transformed by the community college experience? So, if that person were left out of that community college experience, what would happen to them? I can think of, you know, our college is a very good example of that. We have many what are called non-traditional students. We have students who never finished high school. We have immigrant students. We have, you know, so many different kinds of students. And they go through transformations. I had a student in one of my classes who was told that he was dyslexic and he never learned to read. If some of these recommendations were in place by, you know, the assessments and so on, he would never have taken my class. And he had the opportunity of taking the class. So I just want you to think about that a little bit and how that would affect a lot of our students.
Thank you. Eric Schultz from Chabot. Eric, are you somewhere? Oh, behind you, Steph.
Hi, I'm Eric Schultz. I teach at Chabot College. I'm in my third year. I teach music. Also sit on the Academic Senate. Wanted to frame what I'm about to say by saying that this comes out of a place of respect for what everybody's doing and out of a place of respect for my students. I think that the reason that we're here is mostly because the cost of community college to the student doesn't cover what it costs to give the education. That gap has been made up by the state of California until the state of California ran out of money to cover the gap. So now we're all trying to figure out what to do. I think that's really, in a nutshell, what we're doing here. That said, my big message is the definition of student success, in my view, is as broad as the diversity of the students of our colleges. Every single student defines success in a very different way, in a very unique way. I think that the definition of student success exists somewhere between what the student has in terms of their own goals for taking each class and what the instructor determines meets the requirements of the syllabus. I think that's where student success lives. I understand that you have the task, the impossible task, of trying to determine from a higher zoomed out level what the definition of student success is. And that's not possible. I don't think you can do it from where you're sitting. I think this definition of student success exists for each student, between each student and each teacher. So that said, what I see you all doing with this document in a broad view, though there are many things I totally agree with and support, I see you guys attempting to figure out who the state of California is going to financially cover by your own definition of student success. And I would only ask that as you try to do this impossible task, that you leave room in there for students and teachers to define their own methods of success and apply the means and energies necessary to achieve those levels of success in as little, without as much encumbrance as possible. Thank you very much.
No one on the panel seems to be responding, but let me just give a quick response. One of the things that we realized as we ourselves have reread this report a gazillion times is that we were not very clear in several instances about the ability for local exemptions. So in all of these cases, the task force is recommending that there be requirements on students, requirements on colleges, and in each case, we have a process by which we want campuses to take control and to be able to exempt students from those requirements based on the specific needs of a student. So we recognize that campuses differ by region, they differ by student population, and this was never designed to be a one-size-fits-all proposal or set of recommendations. Okay.
Well, I do think, though, that colleges can take accountability for improving success rates, at least broadly, across these groups. I wouldn't want to leave it to that chance. And there's been a push from communities on that, and this is just, that part, I think, is something we can agree on, that we can improve success per the groups of students, and that the stakeholders at the local level should account for the needs of students as they're defined by they themselves, the community that is served by that college, and that it should be to the greater good of that community and the state.
Next I have, is it Antoinette? And Antoinette, I can't read your last name. You're the, with Alameda County Social Services. Technical difficulties, please hold.
So my name is Antoinette Burns, and I work for Alameda County Social Services. I'm the county liaison for the community colleges here. And I just kind of like to piggyback on what Diana Spat said. I know the CalWorks population is a small piece of the pie, but for me, it's a big piece, and I would just like for you guys to keep in mind, I heard you guys say a lot, and we actually agree with a lot that was in the report. But CalWorks is a little different in our focus. Like Diana said, we're a work-first program. So I was glad to see some of the things about the CTE programs because that's directly in line with what we do as a result of SB 1104. It changed the way we look at VTR. So I would just like to encourage that the colleges really need to be in close contact and form great partnerships with the county. We really support our colleges. We meet on a regular basis. And there is a lot of support from the CalWorks program. I hear all these things about the financial aid. I understand the community colleges' budgets are being cut. Our budgets are being cut. But as long as we still have that money, as long as the students are in line with what the state is expecting from them to do, being on CalWorks, we will 100% support them. So on whatever they don't get from financial aid, they can get from the Welfare to Work department. So my only piece is just, we're really on board with these CTE programs. We really want to push that and just encourage that support with your county's liaisons. If you don't have them, I ask that you reach out to them because we're really here to help, and we have the same client. And again, if we're going to do all this, we have to make sure our focus is the same because it does us no good when our students are going to the college and they're on the wrong path because they're time limited and they only have that support for a certain amount of time.
I have Parisi Madavi. Parisi, are you, oh, she's way in the back.
Hi, my name is Parisa Madavi, and I'm a student at DVC. And just reading these recommendations and listening to all of you, it seems that a lot of them were written under a few faulty premises. And one of them, I keep on hearing people say this is not a one-size-fits-all document, but at the same time, the recommendations seem to say, but we're going to make it that way. And Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, a lot of students at community colleges are not just diverse in their socioeconomic status or in their ethnicities, but they have a diversity of issues that have led them to community colleges and not four-year universities. They, as I mentioned, they are from different ethnicities and different financial backgrounds, but also there's a lot of misdiagnosis about either mental illness, dyslexia, abuse, and community colleges, it's not just to educate people, it's often a safety net for many people who have fallen through the cracks. And you do have an impossible job of trying to educate people who have been failed by the K-12 system, or educate people whose pediatricians never diagnosed them correctly, or never got them help for abuse, or whose priests were never able to engage them to help them in the issues that made them not learn how to read or write well in K-12. And maybe you don't see that as your job. Maybe you see it as, you know, these students should just take responsibility and learn how to do math and learn how to do computers and get great jobs and, you know, become an active member of society, but it's not that simple. They would have done that if that was the case. So if you're trying to help these students, I don't want to just suggest that you throw money at the problem, but look into tutorial services or look into other intervention programs that would actually engage them on an individual level. And I'm really glad that you looked at matriculation services and assessments and counseling, but there seems to be a lot of language in the document to use technology to do that. And technology does not engage a student, especially when it comes to counseling. I've seen counselors, and I was always put on a 10-minute limit, and I could tell that the counselors really cared. They really did, and they really wanted to help me. But 10 minutes or even 30 minutes to try to decide my life, it's not effective. Thank you.
Dr. Hines, is it Hines with West Valley College? Oh, she's up here.
Thank you. I'm Victoria Hines from West Valley College, Vice President of Student Services, and I wanted to talk about 1.1. Many of us already do this in some shape, form, or manner. Primarily, we accomplish some of these through our outreach program. Unfortunately, many of us, the funds have been decimated, and we minimally have interactions with our K-12 because we have other priorities that we have to complete. But I wanted to ask the task force members if they're aware that within the California Community College system, there is already a K-16 bridge program that's been implemented for a couple of years now in at least 10 community colleges, and maybe 2 or 3 out of state as well. And this program actually does talk about, or actually works on career preparedness, remediation, and fostering a college-going culture. So I wasn't sure if you had considered that, and then also that implementation for California community colleges of 1.1 would be much, much easier if we can look to that program and get the financial resources, because having to invent the wheel or having to, you know, do one more thing and figure out how to implement it would really be an impingement on all of our other tasks that we have to do. But it would be so much easier if we can get support statewide to implement the program. Thank you.
Suzanne, and then Jane.
Yes, thank you for your comment. And we did study a lot of the programs that are in effect at the community colleges, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that the task force recognized that there are a lot of good things going on throughout the community college system that are geared towards improving community college student success. And we recognize those. One of the concerns that we had is that we know that there are best practices and good things happening out there, but we're trying to figure out how to get that information shared and those best practices more prevalent throughout the system. So some of the recommendations lend themselves to that outcome. With respect to the bridge program, a very successful program, again, in our desire not to take one good program and impose it on all the colleges, again, it's one of the tools that's available for the community colleges to use, and one of the things that we think should be used more widely. But we're still trying to leave that latitude for the local community colleges to find what works best for them and the populations that they serve and the relationships that they develop with their community and also their school districts. So it's a great program, and we applaud it.
Jane?
No, Suzanne covered it.
Okay. Jean Judson? Jean, are you here?
Hello, my name is Gene Judson. I graduated from Chabot College 23 years ago as a returning adult student. I support your efforts here. I actually wondered after I graduated what the schools could have done better for me to keep me in school. And what I feel is lacking is student motivation. All of the suggestions and recommendations are basically how to make the colleges better. There are a few items that approach student behavior, but nothing really approaches the question of student motivation. My feeling what's missing is that there's not a very good connection between education and employment. And so many students drop out because while they were enticed to go to school because they're going to make a certain amount of money more than just high school over their career, or there's a lot of jobs that seem interesting before they start to do the work. But they get sort of depressed because it becomes less viable. As it becomes harder because they see that they wonder if it's worth it to do the midterms and final exams and do all the homework. Is it going to be worth it? And because there's no direct connection, or a very little direct connection between education and employment, except for special programs like nursing and auto tech and stuff like that, there needs to be more done in this area. And I was wondering if anything about student success was discussed in your meetings.
Jane?
Very briefly, the literature about students taking a student success course right up front, we typically would include career exploration, goal setting, ed planning, financial aid, et cetera. And so many of the concerns that you're raising could be partly addressed by having students enroll in a student success / orientation program early in their career. So that was one way that was discussed. There were many other ways, but I just want to mention that because of time.
I wanted to say something about this one too. You've hit on a topic that we had, I think, at our opening session back in January. We had someone from No, I'm thinking of someone else. We had someone come from the business community talking about the need for us to improve our success rates because of the great need for graduates with skills. But in my mind, and we didn't get to really explore it, I was wondering how much does the business community actually guarantee to our students? Virtually nothing. There's an open opportunity there, but it's a changing one. So people need, and it's one now where you're told repeatedly you can't even count on an ongoing career, regardless of how well educated you might be when you come out of an institution. So it's a tough world out there, and it is difficult to know exactly how you're going to plug in. And one of my concerns, and I hear it reflected in a lot of the comments today, people now need to do a lot of educational work to be flexible, to move from one job to another. I'm a little concerned about the narrowing of what we're doing with the task force to kind of have someone come in, get into a particular path and complete. That may have to be done over and over again by folks as they find the workforce needs changing. So I think that is something that we're trying to be sensitive to in our plans. I think the Chancellor said earlier, ed plans can change, so there will be flexibility, there will be exceptions, but I do think this is a problem that isn't only about the colleges. State funding, too, is a big factor here. It's the responsibility of society, I think, to try to come to grips with this problem.
So unbeknownst to you, Rich, you did answer a question from someone who submitted one online, Mike from Las Positas, who had a question about the flexibility in the education planning. And so I'm not sure, I'm going to assume, since Mike's not here, that you just answered his question. Next, I have Derek Smith with Learning Works. Derek, are you here?
I'm not sure if I actually need a mic. I'm from a loud family.
You need the mic because you're being broadcast.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll be very brief. My name's Derek Smith from the organization Learning Works here in Oakland, California. I want to appreciate the clarification by the Chancellor and Mr. Skinner around issues, not just around the scorecard, which is very helpful, but also around prioritizing closing the equity gap. I appreciate that quite a bit. And I look forward to hopefully seeing your level of clarification in the language of the final report as well. So I just want to make a brief comment around the section that discusses aligning community colleges with the Common Core standards that K-12 is developing. As a former high school principal, I can tell you that Common Core standards are not directly connected to actual student improvement. They are standards. And for the community college system to try to align with K-12 instructors and faculties as if it is the alignment or the lack of alignment that is the problem could be a lot of wasted energy. Teachers know exactly what students need. The difficulty is teaching it to them. And that's one of the tough parts. So instead, what I would recommend is some of the combination of some of the things that were already mentioned, which is one, many community colleges, not necessarily through the institutional fault, but just because of the design of our overall system and how we view education in our country, many community colleges do not have clear, articulated career pathways, meaning that if I go to, I'm a graduate of the University of California system, if I go to UC, I know at some point what my major is going to be. I have people around me that's telling me what I'm going to do with that or what I can't do with that. There's a graduate program lined up. There's ideas. And going to my this gentleman in front of me, his great comments around, you know, motivation. Motivation comes from within. It comes from within. And one of the problems with the community college system often is that students don't know in their junior year of high school what their community college down the street can offer them when they're by the time they're 25. And so instead of community colleges going in and trying to align with Common Core standards, I would advocate that a lot of energy be put into community colleges actually linking up with K-12 systems to actually design and inform high school and even middle schools on the types of options that students may have when they come to the community college. I think that energy will be well spent if you can get folks to understand what's even offered down the street. And that ties into the issue around CTE. When you look at many of the colleges, a huge proportion of students are trying to take career development classes. And it would be interesting to see what a chapter in the report, in the recommendations would look like that would be entirely dedicated to the issues within CTE, such as CTE counseling, CTE guidance, CTE best practices, those types of things. Because last thing I'll say, to be quick, something my father used to always tell me was either, when it comes to raising children, either you pay now or pay later, right? And as an educator, I always believe when it comes to teaching, either you're going to pay now or pay later. One of the reasons why California is in the mess that it's in is because for many years, it hasn't done the best job in educating the bulk of its population. What you folks have signed on to do is to do something that is truly historical. I haven't heard that put into that context, that you're actually trying to close an achievement gap, perhaps. You're actually trying to mass educate an entire population of people, hopefully on an equal basis. That's very tough to do in a society that hasn't prioritized that. So what you guys are trying to do is literally bring folks up, and in order to do that, you have to be crystal clear on the methods and the strategies on how you're going to do that, and one of those methods has to be an emphasis on CTE classes the same way you do with the transfer population. Thank you.
Emily Kinner, or Kinnear. Emily, are you here? Oh, she's over there. You're a student trustee from De Anza.
morning. Thank you. Am I on? One of the concerns that I see with the task force recommendations is that I don't see a lot of cohesiveness between the different recommendations, particularly with chapter 3 and chapter 2. As an example, when we're talking about the unit caps, for example, for the BOG waiver, I think that we're forgetting that we have so many reentry students that have units already behind them. We also have students that need to maintain financial aid and take a full-time load, but they are not able to get the classes that they need, so they're having to take extra units anyway just to stay in school and be successful full-time students. We also have a lot of students that are taking multiple basic skills and ESL classes before they can even get to a transfer level, racking up a lot of units, moving more and more towards that cap for the BOG waiver. And then also, in terms of this, it seems like, and the cohesiveness that I'm talking about is, in chapter 2, we're talking about the declaration of majors and ed plans. So what happens to the students that do everything right when they're reentry students or when they're coming as first-year students, and they're declaring their ed plan and they have a path of where they need to take their education, but they're capped out on units. So I'm just wondering where the exemptions will be for those students that are doing the right thing and actually following these mandates that are happening, but then they're being penalized because they've had too many units.
A good question. Kevin, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a few points. The exemptions are all at the local level. So for instance, like if you majored in business and then decided you want to major in nursing, there are exemptions for that. A couple of things with the BOG fee waiver unit caps, it's degree applicable units. So like if a student tested in at 3 levels below transfer, those units would not count towards their unit cap. So there are issues like that, and then it does take into account, you know, DSPS students and other students that may need more time in the system. But I just wanted to put that out there that in the recommendation, it may seem like an overarching kind of systematic change to the BOG, but it's supposed to ensure local control in terms of exemptions. So if you are a reentry student that did graduate, you know, from a community college and went to UC and then lost your job and needed to come back for job training, there is an exemption for that. If you don't want to be a business major that only had like 12 units and you want to be a nursing major and you don't have any of the classes, there are exemptions for that. So we're not looking to penalize the students for, you know, either changing their course direction or having to take classes that maybe they weren't able to be successful in K-12. But we just wanted to make sure that everybody had as close to the same opportunity to attend college for the first time or continuing their education to be able to do what they want to do later in life.
Thank you. Sarah Thompson, Las Positas College, you had a question related to money and costs, it looks like.
Thank you. Not so much a question as much as a comment relating to cost. We are indeed, as Chancellor Scott outlined, rationing courses. And unfortunately at Las Positas, we don't have quilting or courses for seniors to reduce. So when we reduce in the areas of basic skills, CTE, and transfer, which is why recommendation 3.4 really did begin to send some of our planners into a mild panic. Las Positas College is located in Livermore, a relatively affluent community. We have a high transfer rate, yet 70% of our students, of our incoming freshmen, need remediation in English, math, or both. And so what we have actually done is a implementation cost analysis, which I will turn into you, which looks at what the cost on faculty resources, classified resources, support resources, and on facilities would be in the implementation of addressing basic skills remediation, right, the very first year that students are there. And just to give you an idea of the impact it would have on our relatively small yet affluent college would be that if we were to make sure there were the opportunities for English and math remediation for everyone who needed it in their first year, including all the backlog that we currently have, we could eliminate the programs of sociology, economics, anthropology, geology, welding, and our entire ECD program. Thank you.
Can you give us the cost? It would be awesome if you say what it costs out loud. If you just give us an example so we know now.
Okay, sure. For example, if we were to look at actually having enough courses for English remediation, currently 65% of our incoming students assess at English 1 or 4 or below. We have a backlog every year of several hundred students, and we have a repeat rate of 25%. So that's the data we looked at in terms of assessing how many additional courses we would need. So English itself would require 17 more sections of basic skills English, 10 more sections of English 1A, which is transferable English, so that there's not a bottleneck there. And the impact on faculty resources is English would need 6 additional FTEF to accomplish this. And at our college, which is about 6,000 FTES, that is the equivalent of sociology, economics, and anthropology all combined. But I also have the classified resources need facilities. I mean, but that's an example. Is that?
Yep. Very good, thanks. I just wanted it in the video and everything so people heard it too.
Jeffrey Michaels, Contra Costa College.
Hi, thanks. Is this on? Yeah. Good. I'm Jeffrey Michaels. I teach English at Contra Costa College, and I have spent the last 20 years or so as a teacher concerned passionately with student success. Access has never really been my thing. I believe in it, but and I contribute by taking a few extra students into my class. But like most teachers, my job is to help my students succeed, and I've spent a lot of time working on that subject. And I'm always very skeptical about the idea that education reform can come from anybody other than a bunch of teachers getting together and figuring out how to reach goals. It's one thing to give us goals from the state. It's another thing to try to tell us how to achieve those goals. And I think that if you got a bunch of faculty, community college faculty, in a room and asked them how we could make more progress with our students and help our students succeed more, the top answers are nowhere in this report. We would answer that we need more full-time faculty, that we don't have enough full-time. I come from a department with 3 full-timers and we have about 22 part-time faculty. There are not enough full-timers to work on the norming exercises and the pedagogical values that we have. I think we would talk about professionalizing part-time faculty. Our part-timers need offices and telephones and paid office hours where students can actually reach them. They need some job security. That's nowhere on here. I think we would talk about smaller class sizes. Right now, not only are we rationing education, but we are packing students into the rooms in ways that are not pedagogically sound. And my question is really about priorities. There are some recommendations that I think sound terrific. There are some recommendations I'm very concerned about as a teacher, especially the idea of aligning our offerings to student ed plans, because I think part of our job is to show students opportunities that they haven't considered and broaden their outlook. And they don't know exactly how those classes are going to fit into their plan, but it's amazing how you can discover yourself with a good teacher and a good class. But my question is about priorities. This is a good forum, and I think I've had more access than most. I serve on the FAC board. I'm the president of my union. I've been in a lot of dialogues about these task force recommendations, and I have learned something new in every meeting that I've been in. But it just seems like a way too few meetings and way too little discussion if we're really talking about funding. Is this really, the Student Success Task Force recommendations, is this really the top priority for the system? Or should we really be talking about this in the context of our other challenges? That we do need more full-time faculty and to professionalize our part-time faculty, that we need to restore the funding that's been cut, that we need to restore categorical funding. If we put a recommendation before the legislature that says that this is the recommendation of our system, the most important thing is that we put money into counseling, that we put money into a scorecard system and the administration it will take to do that. Where has the dialogue on that been, and when are we all going to sit down and decide if that really is the top priority right now in this system? Because there's some good ideas in here, but I haven't really heard the conversation about how they fit into the big picture and why we should be prioritizing funding. So I haven't heard much conversation about that, but I wanted to ask if there's going to be more discussion about how this again, we talk about fitting these recommendations in with one another. How do they fit in with the rest of what we know about what works and what doesn't? And programs like EOPS that lost half their funding in the categorical cuts. And I mean, I could go on, but I only have 3 minutes. Again, I feel like if we had more time to really sit down and talk about this, and if we got more buy-in statewide, we could do way better than if people feel like there are some priorities being imposed upon us and we each got 3 minutes to respond. Thank you.
You raise a lot of important points, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to try to respond to all of them. On the budget piece of it, that's really my background. I think it's very important that we are clear that this proposal is not a substitute for advocating for more resources. We have fought for resources, for more funding. We need more funding. We can do amazing things with more money. But I think the reality is this plan is an attempt to try to come up with a realistic proposal that we can move forward with, in many ways, irrespective of the funding. Because the bottom line is we're in the middle of an awful recession. It's persistent. It's not, the money's not going to come back, flowing back tomorrow. I think we need to come up with a game plan that we can use, even in a flat environment, to try to improve the way we operate. But nobody should mistake that for a position that we're going to lie down and say we don't need money. I mean, absolutely, we need more resources. We are underfunded as a system, but we can't build a plan. It wouldn't be useful to build a plan that's contingent on getting another $1 billion, because that's just not the world we live in. That's not going to. That's the reality. Is that's not going to be our reality for several years to come, at least before money starts coming back. It's a recession we're in. I think the alternative is we don't come up with any proposal to revise how we operate, and we just keep asking for more money. And do we do that for 5 more years, 10 more years? I don't know how long it takes till the money comes back. At some point, we need to do what we can with what we have.
The 1 2 cents I would add is that you would have more allies in your discussion with the legislature and the governor if communities that represent the students that are most vulnerable could be engaged in this conversation. That's why we at PolicyLink have been pushing so hard. We do think that the community college system we have is not only the best higher ed system in the state of California, but on the planet. But that would require that those communities, particularly Latino, Asian, immigrant, the folks who represent women on welfare, clearly understood that we're trying to do better by those populations, and they would be right there with you and would take a look at why we're spending $45,000 to warehouse and give early retirement to young men of color and not putting the money into the community college system. But we would need to have that assurance from the faculty that you're willing to go to bat for these students too, and there are sacred cows that you would look at as well.
Was there another response? Okay. So we're looking at the clock and it's noon, and we know that we got started with this part of the portion of the program late, so we're not stopping. Nobody panic. No one run out of the room. So we're going to keep going for at least a while longer, and I know some of our task force members have other constraints, so if they get up and leave, it is not a testament to any of you or any of your comments. Well, it might be, but I can't speak for them. So next I have Susan Sweeney. Did you want to make a comment on behalf of all of the CalWorks students you have with you today?
Actually, I wanted to let you hear just briefly from 3 of our current students. I promise will be brief, and one of our former students. And I'll have Shauna begin. I wanted to announce that I'm Susan Sweeney. I'm the president of the California Community College CalWorks Association.
Good afternoon. My name is Shauna Lujan, and I am the CalWorks Program Coordinator at Ohlone College. 10 years ago, I was a student at Ohlone College, and I was one of those mothers on welfare. And I had just recently divorced from an extremely abusive husband, to the point where I was punched, kicked, my face was smashed into the ground. And I started at Ohlone College, and I weighed probably 300 pounds. And you're wondering, why is that important? Because if you know Ohlone College, it's nestled up high in the mountains of Fremont, and all you see is stairs. And I stood at the bottom of the stairs, and I wondered how I would ever reach the top. And when I reached the top of the stairs, I realized that was one step in the right direction. Now, I was sweaty, I was out of breath, and I was exhausted. I had no husband, I had no job, I had no money, I was on welfare, but the one thing I did have was a 2-year-old son at home. And he was counting on me. So I found the CalWorks office at Ohlone College, and they were the ones who pointed me in the right direction. They were the ones who helped me get the financial aid and the fee waivers and everything else that I needed. They showed me where EOPS was. They showed me where the CARE program was. They carried me. And after my first year, I found out that my son was autistic. Now he's really counting on me because his father was non-existent, just gone, out of the picture. And here I was again. What am I going to do? You know, when I was in high school, when I started high school as a freshman, I tested at a 4th grade math level. And here I am in college. I didn't think that was ever going to be possible for me to graduate. But the CalWorks program and the staff supported me. And when I found out the news about my son, they were the ones that I went to and I cried to. It was Ohlone College. It was the CalWorks program. And when I was about to graduate, the director of EOPS, who covers CalWorks as well, approached me about a part-time job. So in 3 years, I was off of welfare. I had a part-time job at Ohlone College, and I was on my way to San Jose State, where I graduated with my bachelor's degree. A few years later, which is actually last May, I received my master's degree. So the community college system, it does work. CalWorks program does work. And thank you for taking off the table the collaboration for the categorical programs. Thank you.
I'm Robin. I'm a CalWorks student as well, and I'm kind of thinking I should be saving my story for the legislators or something else, but I wanted to share my gratitude for the program with you guys so you can remember the importance in any future recommendations. For me, I'm a person healing from a very traumatic past, and when I became faced with being a single mother, I just knew that I had to do whatever it took to heal and to provide a good life for this child, this innocent person, you know. And so part of that for me was to go back to college, and I was terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was even capable. But in my intake appointment with the CalWorks counselor, she told me that I could do it, and she told me to imagine myself walking across the stage, graduation stage, and my daughter in the audience. It chokes me up because I never had anything to be proud of until now. And she also told me, you know, she taught me how to use my resources, and she told me to get involved in my community. I didn't know what that meant until now. So I just did what she said, and to my amazement, I have straight A's. I'm applying to UC Berkeley this month. I have 2 leadership positions in honors societies at my campus, and I'm a co-leader of Missy nonprofit in Oakland, where we advocate for sexually exploited youth. And this combination of thing has awarded me 7 awards and scholarships, and I was recently nominated for the 2012 All-USA Community College Academic Award. And I wouldn't be able to juggle all these things if it weren't for CalWorks advocating for me and helping me one-on-one meet my county deadlines. So if I don't meet those deadlines, I can't provide for my daughter, and if I can't provide for her, I can't go to school, and I can't give back to my community. And it's just really awesome, the experience I'm having. I'd like other women to be able to experience that as well.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, also a CalWorks student. I'm an intern at CalWorks at this point, and through CalWorks, same thing. Most of us have been through something really, really bad there and overcame a lot to succeed. I'm at the point I'm graduating. This is my last semester with my classes to graduate, and I'm using next semester as my last 2 units to transfer. So a lot has been met with the goals and what CalWorks has provided, along with just family support through helping my family. I had a son who was on his way to do everything I had did, and graduated from high school 2 weeks after turning 17, 2 weeks ago. So there's been a lot of success that's been able to play out by the support received at the CalWorks program. Now, I also get to give back to the CalWorks program by providing resources. And the measuring success, I'm so happy, was brought up in here because working there, and I've held 5 student positions on the Santa Rosa Junior College campus, and being throughout that campus and working also in assessment at this point. I also work in assessment as being a student and an intern at CalWorks. And people's measures of success are so separate. There's people, GEDs are their measure of success. You have ESL students who I've seen try 18 times to get that GED, and that was their success. Their next success is going to be able to take computer classes so they can just find a job. So when you're measuring success, like the gentleman back there said, I hope that you're saying this is on a local level and exemptions, and as a student, I'm sorry, that word just gets me, because unless you advocate for yourself, that's not a lot of stuff you know about. So I'm glad that those are things that are taken into thought here, but I would like to see the measure of success be held on a state level rather than keeping it on a local.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie McGee. I am the student trustee at Foothill College. As well, I'm very involved throughout the entire campus, from everything from EOPS to student government to just volunteering my time. Instead of just explaining what CalWorks is to me, I just want to go ahead and explain a little bit about my life so you can see what success has been for me so far. I was a high school dropout in my junior year. I had to drop out to help raise my sister, who was born autistic and has cerebral palsy. We were told she only had a year to live. I decided to drop out of school and help raise her. A few years down the line, I ended up in over a 5-year abusive relationship. Everything from physical, emotional, and mental abuse had happened, at times in front of my daughter. I found myself a single parent. I had to get back to school. I did all I could, but I was terrified to go back to school. To give you guys a vision, I was like a goldfish. If you took them out of your water and you put them on the ground, I was terrified. How was I going to provide for my daughter, for myself? I did not want to be out on the streets, and that was not an option. So I proceeded at Foothill College. This was my last chance to get an education and realized that this was essential for me and for my daughter's success. Every day I wake up and I worry about how to make ends meet, that there is not enough money, or can I even go to school that day? I do all I can. CalWorks benefits have contributed to relieve me of some of those daily stresses. Later on, I'll explain what those entail. I also have to work 32 hours. I work way over and beyond that. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because this is a wonderful opportunity of being able to help others who have helped me. I am the student trustee who I work in addition over the 32 hours that is expected of me. I receive help through various programs and services which CalWorks and County Assistance has helped me to proceed with obtaining my degree. I'm a 3.0 student in Dean's List and have even received awards in English from a high school dropout that couldn't even pass classes. I'm getting ready to transfer next year with my degree, and it's not going to stop there. But guess what? Without CalWorks, I would have to drop out again, let myself down. Worse off, I would have to look in my daughter's eyes and tell her, I could not do that. I want to push my daughter to her limits so she holds me accountable. We're partners. Without CalWorks, I would have to see my daughter less. I barely see her a few hours a day. Without CalWorks, in order for me to meet the benefits, I would have to work a full 8 hours at night. I already only get 5 hours of sleep a night. How CalWorks basically works is, in order for me to receive my benefits, I have to do at least 32 hours of work. Okay, for me, that's school, along with being a trustee, along with advocating for higher education, along with going up to the state capitol to advocate for budget cuts, which I had done last year as legislative director. CalWorks basically gives me cash aid and food stamps. That goes into the welfare to work programs that I receive benefits such as childcare, transportation, books, tutoring, academic counseling, and I even receive other benefits. However, if anybody knows the cost of childcare, you're looking at a minimum of $500. Transportation, you're looking at a minimum of $300 to $400. Books, I take 16 units. Each book is at least $100. CalWorks helps me. CalWorks pays for this. Without CalWorks, I would have to give up on myself and my daughter. But most of all, if you want to measure success, and that wasn't enough for you, I can break it down in another way. CalWorks ties to education, to a career, and helps me contribute back into the economy, being an upstanding citizen and also a role model for myself, others, and our children of the future, who will one day take care of this world and us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we appreciate your stories are very powerful, and I appreciate you all coming. Chancellor, you wanted to comment?
Yes. One is, yeah, I will have to leave because I have another appointment, but I just wanted to, number one, express to all of you how much I appreciate your coming out and expressing your thoughts. That's why we came here, to listen to you. Number two, all of our discussion about ways in which we can improve student success is in no way an indication of the fact that we are proud of this system and what it does for everybody. If anything would convince you of that, the testimony of these four beautiful young women would certainly indicate to you what the community colleges can do. We are in the business of transforming lives, and we transform not just thousands of lives, but millions of lives every year. So we have a wonderful system. Number two, I want you to understand that we know we're underfunded. I can tell you that I was in the legislature for 12 years. And you can look up my voting record, and I always voted to increase taxes to help education. However, our state constitution says that we've got to get a 2/3 vote. And I want to say to you, when you go to a legislator, and that legislator says, oh, I love the community colleges, ask her or him whether or not they voted to increase taxes to help education. So we're not, there's some eloquent testimony here today that says we need more funding. We believe that we need more funding. We are underfunded. That's why our class size has gone up. We went from a class size average of 29 to 31. We cut classes. Why did we cut classes? Did you know there's not a college in this state that wants to cut classes? They cut classes because they got 8% of their budget cut. They cut classes because this year they have 5% of their budget cut, and there's no other way they can balance the budget and offer all the classes because the state lowers the cap. And they say to you that if you generate more full-time equivalents, you won't get another penny. I don't care if your cap is 8,000 FTES and you generate 10,000, you're educating 2,000 students for which you're getting not a penny. So I want you to understand that the colleges, when they cut classes, They're not doing that because they want to cut classes. They're doing that because the state has given them less money. So you can leave this auditorium and you can go out to your community and you can go to your legislators and say the community colleges are underfunded. So all of our suggestions about student success, would we like more full-time teachers? Of course we would. Would we like more counselors? You bet we would. We would like to see more counselors. But the truth of the matter is we are underfunded, so we have to face the reality. So all we're trying to do is to say, how can we take what resources we've got and not give up on pounding on the door? In fact, I'll tell you something. If we present to the legislators the fact that we are even doing our job better, we'll make a better case for more money. That's one of the reasons we're doing this, is we want them to say we're doing everything we can to educate as many students as we can, as well as we can. So this whole student task force, and there are a lot of ways, by the way, one of the things I think is wonderful about this is it gets us talking about student success. I guarantee you what will be happening on college campuses will be, as this conversation goes on, you'll come up with ideas that we hadn't even thought of because they'll apply to your place. So let's just let this conversation about student success continue. I know we're interested in student success. I'm not, for one moment, saying that teachers aren't interested in student success. I started as a teacher. My wife is a retired community college teacher, and I used to listen to her talking about working with students and basic skills and all the rest, and how much she cared about student success. So that's what we're interested in here. So don't take anything we have to say as a suggestion that we don't value the present system or as a suggestion that we don't think we're underfunded. We are underfunded. I make that case constantly, going from legislative office to legislative office. In fact, that's one of the reasons they asked me to do the job. They thought maybe I could get into those offices easier than some of the rest of you, because I know some of those people. But we do have some people that thus far have never voted for an additional penny for education. And we've got we also have some ways in which we're not spending money very well. And one of the ways is we're spending so much more on prisons than we did 10 years ago. Makes it sound like that we're more interested in putting stripes on people than graduation gowns. And that's not the way it ought to be. So just keep all that in mind. This is what this is about. It's an attempt on the part of 20 dedicated people. And by the way, somebody said, what about the faculty? 5 of the members of that task force were faculty. So there was certainly an input of the faculty, and we treasure that input. So I just wanted, before I left, to let you know what we're trying to do, that we're not in any sense judging what's being done now as being inadequate, or we're just looking at ways in which we might even improve. But keep talking about our funding. Don't let up on the fact that the state of California is cheating its future. Every dollar, according to a University of California study, every dollar we spend, I'm not choking up, I'm just choking up my throat. I'm not that emotional. But what I'm emotional about this, but I'm not breaking up. But all I'm saying is every dollar that the state of California spends on higher education, they get $3 back in increased taxes that come from better educated students. So I wish we had money to do everything we want to do, older adults and all the rest. But unfortunately, we do have to prioritize because we are getting limited money. So that's the only case I'm making. But thank you once again for coming out.
So before you all leave, we had a couple of questions that related to the next steps, and in particular, the next steps in this process. So let me begin by saying we recognize that we did not get everyone's questions addressed. We unfortunately have a limited amount of time here today. So we do have ways for you to submit your comments. We've got a lot of different mechanisms, but one of them is, I'm sorry, I know, well, I did it on purpose. I did it on purpose because on the screen is the web address for you to submit comments at. We have both an online tool, and yes, somebody reads, actually I read every single one of those comments. Oh. Okay, well, hold on for a second. Let me get to this point. I'll turn the lights back up after you all have copied down the website, and our task force members who are able to stay will stay. So the fact that I was moving on to next steps did not imply that we were concluded. I'm sorry that it was perceived that way. So it is November 16th, I believe, today. The task force meets again. They have a final meeting December 7th. The Board of Governors of the community colleges has a meeting scheduled on December 1st to talk about this topic. Both of those will round out the report from this group at this point in time. The final report of the task force goes to the Board of Governors for their approval in January, and then the entire process continues. It continues as this report goes to the legislature. They were the ones who requested that we convene this task force and produce the report, and it continues as we talk about implementation strategies and implementation plans. So I don't want people to think that the December and January meetings conclude this process. So now that everyone has the address, I will turn the lights back up, and I'm trying to turn the lights back up. Sir, why don't you make your comment? Hold on a second, we're gonna get you the mic.
Thank you very much, board members, for staying in extra for us. My name is Norberto Quiroz. I am a counselor at Santa Rosa Junior College, and I'm also the Region 3 representative for the EOPS Association. Somebody else brought up the issue of motivation, and I wrote myself a couple of notes about motivation, and we do have a lot of students who sometimes just drift through our colleges trying to figure out what they want to do. However, if we continue to fund pre-college outreach programs, maintain success courses that you talked about that help students be successful, and then create some retention programs, a continuum of motivation, I think that we're going to be able to glean those $3 that we, in the taxes in the near future, and our students will find success. I would like to address Chapter 3.1. Do not deny registration priority to students in academic progress or probation. All colleges currently deny registration to students who are dismissed due to their academic progress or performance. Raising this bar to include students on probation does not allow enough time for the necessary remediation, and this is key, to reestablish the academic and progress performance of these students to bring them back to a clear standing. And I'm sure that a lot of us may have goofed off a little bit in high school and a lot in college, but we had that second opportunity, and that is a real plus. The other issue that I would like to address is that do not limit the access to BOG fee waivers for any low-income student who is eligible to enroll in credit classes. In order to save $89 million in BOG reductions at a registration fee of $36 per unit, the full-time equivalent of 200,000 18 low-income students would be denied access to credit courses. Do not limit access to BOG fee waivers to students in academic or progress probation. All students currently receiving BOG fee waivers do meet institutional satisfactory progress standards. When they do not, they are placed on dismissal status and are not able to use the BOG to enroll. And lastly, do not restrict basic skills instruction to non-credit classes. Most explicitly stated in your 817 version. Students taking non-credit classes do not qualify for financial aid, EOPS scholarships, and other services that are tied to credit enrollment. In addition, instructors who teach non-credit classes are paid at a lower rate than instructors teaching credit courses. Basic skill instructors need to be paid at a rate equal to all other credit instructors. And finally, the end result in taking all of these recommendations added together is to slam the door shut in the faces of low-income, educationally disempowered students who stand to gain the most benefit from a community college education. And using the silo analogy that we've been talking about, in the Midwest, how many of you are from the Midwest? In the Midwest, silos are a good thing because it helps the community in bad times. And so we do work within our silos, but we work across all kinds of student services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ma'am, here in the front. Oh, can you just hold on 1 second until the microphone gets to you so the people online can hear?
My name is Valerie Howard. I'm a student in the older adult program at City College of San Francisco. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for reconsidering section 4.1, and please ensure that the older adults program continues to be included. With the uncertain economy, people who have worked 30 to 40 years can't live on their pensions and Social Security and need older adult classes to gain skills to start a small business or get a part-time job to supplement their income. Many also go on to get an AA degree. As a 60-year-old displaced homemaker, my high school graduate mother attended older adult art classes to learn skills to prepare for a career as an artist. And she went on to sell over 100 sculpture pieces and 100 drawings. The highlight of her career was around age 85, when the Meyerowitz Gallery in San Francisco displayed several of her figurative sculpture pieces, along with drawings by Matisse, Picasso, and Chagall. They didn't include her name, but they charged $1,500 for each of her pieces. They didn't include her name because she wasn't as well known as the other artists. Thank you.
Thank you. The woman in the purple.
Thank you very much for staying. I know everybody's hungry for lunch. I'll be really brief. My name's Helene Maxwell, and I'm the coordinator for programs and services for students with disabilities at College of Alameda. Thank you for looking at that section on non-credit courses. I saw some language that referenced only students with acquired brain injury who would be affected if non-credit courses disappeared. But in fact, at many colleges that have non-credit, it's all students with disabilities can benefit from those courses. So it's a broader, thank you, and it sounded like maybe you were saying that earlier.
That's understood, yeah.
Thank you. College of Alameda is one of 5 community colleges in the state who were awarded the College to Career Grant. This is a partnership with the State Chancellor's Office and the Department of Rehabilitation to work with students with intellectual disability and autism in college to career, meaning schooling and then to a job. The other colleges are Sacramento City, Santa Rosa, North Orange, and San Diego, and non-credit courses in 2 of those districts at least play a critical role. We know that autism is on the increase. We heard from a couple of our CalWorks parents who have autistic children. And we know that students with intellectual disability, there's a nationwide move to open the doors to college to them. So, and the point being that students with intellectual disabilities who have participated in post-secondary, we know that they have a much better employment outcome. The data are there. One other thing, and that is that there may be unintended consequences in several of the recommendations, particularly in assessment 2.1, 2.2, 2.4, affecting students with disabilities. And so I ask that you confer with the professionals who work with students and with the students themselves to make sure that none of these recommendations adversely and inadvertently would affect students with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a quick comment because I have to leave. I have to go down to De Anza College to inform them about the Student Success Task Force. But what I've heard from people are concerned are about secondary or unintended consequences, and also how these recommendations could change our system. And don't forget, there are other next steps. This will go to the Board of Governors in January for final approval at their March meeting. Then someone, I think it was over here with the CalWorks folks, said maybe their comments are best directed at the legislature. That's ultimately where this goes. So don't give up. Jane said it earlier. A lot of this is going to be determined by how it's implemented. So get in there, fight to keep our system what it is, and don't give up. Thanks.
So a quick correction to Rich's comment. Actually, the report goes to the Board of Governors for their approval in January and to the legislature in March. So I just don't want people to misunderstand the timeline. So I have a couple of questions back here, and then I'll try to take a couple up here. The problem we're going to run into is that we don't have this space all day, so we are going to need to wrap it up. So the gentleman in the suit and right there.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is John Rizzo. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees of City College of San Francisco. Yesterday, community college students, faculty, classified workers, and trustees held a rally to oppose some of the most onerous provisions of this proposal. Assemblyman Tom Amiano, who was there, told me that this is not what the legislature had in mind. This plan, I think, starts out with the wrong premises. Community colleges are not failing. Part of our resolution that our Board of Trustees passed opposing this, part of the resolution shows some of the things that we are doing to actually make colleges succeed. We are operating at the budget levels of 2002, yet our success levels are increasing and have been increasing. We had 20,000 students. We had to say no 20,000 times to students who tried to register for classes. These students are not going to be able to continue. They are going to have to take multiple years because they can't get into the classes they want. So to say that they're failing, that the system is failing because they're not getting into their second year is just a false premise. Another really onerous part of these proposals, part of the original proposals, was to make California taxpayers, residents, pay out-of-state tuition. And this is what the full cost of that you were going to charge for people, for low-income people who were no longer eligible for BOG waivers. This is out-of-state tuition, and you have to admit it. The taxpayers will not stand for this, and the legislature will hear this and they will refuse. Finally, I want to ask a question, and that is, what is the budget of the task force? How much is this effort costing the taxpayers of California? Thank you.
The woman right here in blue.
Thank you.
I don't have an answer for you right now.
In terms of the cost? It's independently funded. That we sought out and got money from foundations in order to support it. Absolutely. It's
in the back of the report.
It's in the back of the report. And the foundation support totals close to $500,000 over the span of the year. The majority of that funding was used to bring the 20 task force members to meetings, 2-day meetings in which they deliberated over these issues. I'd be happy to talk with you more about that if you want.
The woman in blue, and then the woman in red.
Karen Saganor from City College of San Francisco. I'm a librarian and the Academic Senate president there. The issue of the BOG fee waiver has already been brought up. The part I want to point out is that the recommendation says it's going to incentivize students by taking away the BOG fee waiver. What I want to know is if this kind of threat helps students succeed, why doesn't the recommendations want to provide the same incentive to all students, not just those with BOG fee waivers? Why is the threat of denying access to students being applied to all students, rich and poor? The Academic Senate plenary, the State Academic Senate passed a resolution a couple of weeks ago asking that we point out to the task force that you should acknowledge that this recommendation is a proposal to establish different academic policies for students based on their differing ability to pay. If you're going to have one set of rules for bog fee waiver students and another set of rules for students who are not on bog fee waivers, that yes, they can take the classes if they can pay for them. If they will go into debt to pay for them, then they can take the classes. Otherwise, they're going to be turned away. That is introducing a kind of inequity into the system that I don't think we want to have.
I think that recommendation. I would applaud that statement too, because I think that recommendation has been misread and misinterpreted, and clearly that's something we need to clarify. The satisfactory academic progress standards that the task force proposes to apply to bog waiver recipients are exactly the same ones that are applied to students at the campus. There is no difference. There is no distinction. The task force debated whether or not they should apply Pell Grant standards to both progress, to unit caps and the like, and decided that the federal government's restrictions were too tight. So we are only holding our bog waiver recipients under this proposal to the same standard that we hold all of our students. I think we did, but apparently we didn't do it well enough, so we'll make that correction. Eric? I'm sorry, it was the woman in red next. And I'm sorry, we're only going to have about 5 more minutes.
I'm going to make it short. My name is Lorelei Liang, and I'm a program assistant with EOPS. I'd like to say that EOPS has been successful because, and that is in no small way because EOPS requires students to do ed plans. And from that perspective, I'd like to direct my comments towards the issue of majors and educational planning. In recommendation 2.2, where you talk about orientation and developing an educational plan. Yes. It would be great if you can fund services to require students to attend an extended orientation to include a group introduction to the areas of general education requirements. Another group session can tie the GE areas to possible majors and careers. Another thing that I would like to do is recommend funding that requires students to see counselors for educational planning at least once a year, and that would help put a stop to the achievement gap. Regarding recommendation 2.5, where you make comments about having students losing priority after they have not been able to make declare a major after the 3rd term. I want to tell you that very few low-income educationally disadvantaged students have been exposed to the nature and demands of professions and opportunities in the market. Many students need work experience or internships to deepen their knowledge and skills of possible majors, careers, and to the world of work. Funding services to connect students to the world of work would help students in identifying possible majors. Another thing that I would like to say is that requiring students to declare a major by the end of the 3rd term, rather than the 2nd term, would be more realistic, as students generally need 3+ years to fulfill degree or transfer requirements depending on their majors, and especially in light of the funding constraints and course availability that is in place right now. Regarding recommendation 3.1, where you talk about giving higher enrollment priority to continuing students who are in good standing, and also, you make a point about, I would say that given the high percentage of students who are underprepared, especially students of color, losing enrollment priority would only exacerbate the student achievement gap. Providing more counseling contacts over the course of a year would help alleviate the obstacles faced by these students. Recommendation 3.2. Regarding having students meet institutional satisfactory progress in order to be eligible for fee waiver. Using the fee waiver program as a way to incentivize successful student behavior would only widen the achievement gap. Without the fee waiver program, fewer students would even attempt college, thereby preempting any possibilities for growth and for beginning a career. while there may be some short-term savings, it would be much more expensive later to educate those students who have not made satisfactory academic progress. Recommendation 4.1 regarding requirements for a student to complete a program of study. Part of the problem is that the course sequencing for majors and certificates and transfer to the CSU and UC system must be made more straightforward so that more students can be self-directed. And in that way, you would also save some money as well. So in short, the recommendations as is reward students who generally do well and can help themselves. However, it leaves students with personal challenges such as little or no support at home or in their community to pursue academic studies at a loss. It behooves us to take the long-term perspective in educating all of our young people, even though it may cost a little more. As a responsible society, we should provide a little bit more flexibility to those students who have traditionally not considered education as an option, the fullest support to the extent possible. Only then will we be able to bridge the achievement gap. Leaving out those students who cannot perform on a timely basis will result in groups of people outside of the marketplace. And that means we are all going to have to pay the piper down the line. Thank you.
Thank you. One more comment over here, the gentleman in the suit. And then we're going to need to... Oh, I'm sorry, the gentleman behind you.
How about both? Just quick. Just quick. Okay, I'll be quick. I'm Jeffrey Fang, student trustee, City College of San Francisco. I'm here on behalf of the 100,000 student that I'm here to represent. I have my points clear. I'll make it quick. First of all, I want to thank the task force for all the work they're doing for the past year. However, on the whole, I have to respectfully say that we, as the student, disagree with the entire proposal, and not because the proposal is not about improving student and achieving student closing student achievement gap, but it is, on the whole, the sum of its all part. It's not about student success. It's about system change, and system change usually includes lag time. That means it's indirect. It doesn't help the student directly, and that's not helpful. And also, we do need more time and to actually discuss this in detail. Another worrisome aspect is over the past 11 months, there was only one student spot on this the composition of the task force, and that's really worrisome because more students can provide more crystallization, the idea that can make it better. Now, and also, I have a hard time dealing with, try to wrap my head around the inconsistency in that the report, which I have read, start off saying this needs to be considered as a whole, as a package. However, in in the breakout in General Assemblies, SSCCC, and other places I've heard it, I keep hearing, oh, but you need to consider it in a fine-tooth comb, and you need to go through individual by individual. Now, the thing is, if we're looking at its part individuals, there are some really good ideas. I won't knock that. However, the point is, as a whole, and if you insist that we look at it closely and then look at it as a package, well, eventually, if you want to do it as a package, this really is really bad for students. It won't do the success part that you desire to do. And also, I have a question. Why are we not fighting the lazy journalism? I keep hearing about how we are getting news press, negative press about how we're not achieving, not helping students. Why are we not fighting those lazy journalism with our own journalist contacts about what we are doing, the success we are having? And also, I am a transfer student, but as I read this, I don't feel that really entirely is helping me, the totality of it. Some parts are good, like I said, but really need to reconsider throwing out the whole thing as a package for now. But if you like the individual recommendation, which you do hear a lot of positive things about individual recommendation, bring it back in parts, not whole. Lastly, as a immigrant who learned English as my second language and I speak Mandarin fluently, at my college, I help receive delegation from China, which they, by the way, they use junior college model, not community college. they come to us, and I translate for them about what we do, what the community college system is like. You know what they say? Wow, wonderful. We should do that. We should be doing that already. Why? We should move out of the junior college model. And that comes from a country who is focused on junior college model for hundreds of years, in fact. So we got a good thing. We should not be thinking about prioritizing one student group versus the other. And also, I have never heard of any college, and I ask around a lot, scheduling classes by having more basket weaving or whatever, and then not having basic skill. Usually, we put more emphasis on basic skill and less on the community classes. The distribution is not framed correctly. So, respectfully, please hear what thank you for hearing my point. And I'll give you the the almost 800 signature or so we have gathered, and already just one of our 12 campuses opposing this package, not individual recommendation, but package. Please consider, if you try to adopt as a package, it won't work and it will not build success. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in the front, and then the woman in the green.
Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Hugo Aparicio. I'm a City College instructor, part-time instructor. And let me tell you, I don't envy your position. Because regardless of what suggestions you're going to have, regardless of how bright, you're always going to have people who are going to oppose them. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Started junior college, City College, about 25, well, many years ago. And I wanted to be a pilot, commercial pilot. Now, 2 semesters later, I found that it was out of my reach, too expensive. So I changed to pre-law. Maybe I wanted to follow my father's step. After all, it was cheap for me then. I mean, taking out the garbage once a week, it was very easy for me my parents were supporting me, so it was cheap for me. Unfortunately, my father passed away and things changed. I decided to go into business, and I transferred later on, but I finished a business education. Now, so the premises that you can select what you want to do at an earlier stage at junior college, I do not agree with that.
And we're going to get kicked out, so we have to hear your recommendations as soon as possible so our sister over here can say something too.
Now, I believe in City College as being an open institution, open door institution. But the biggest challenge that you face is, how are you going to get students engaged in whatever recommendations you propose? And not only the students, but their families who support them. Not only economically, but giving them encouragement. Now, what I propose to you, and what I would like to see, and may not be well received, is the following. I believe that the structure of how we charge per unit should be mentioned in your report as follows. Remedial unit courses should be charged $5 a unit, regardless of how many times the student is going to take it. Now, the first 15 units of college should be charged at maybe $10 or $15 a unit. The second 15 units should be charged maybe at $15 or $25 a unit. The next 15 units would be a much higher rate. Now, the idea that you are increasing the price per unit is going to encourage students to be more careful in the classes that they select. Their family is also going to be very interested, because the more classes that they take that are not towards their degree, the more they're going to be paying. So I do believe that the responsibility has to go into the student to choose whatever course whatever classes they're going to take in order to be successful. Now, in my classes, I have many students who enroll in my classes just to be enrolled and be able to get some type of financial aid. They never show up. So under my plan, under my suggestion, what I would say is, whatever classes you enroll, count towards the total number of units, not in the classes that you have finished. You follow me? So that's what I would like to see in your report. And if you follow this type of structure, you're going to find that students are going to be encouraged to finish and transfer as soon as possible. You're going to have an open door students, and students who want to be professional students, they will have to pay a flat $50 per unit. Now, they want to stay in school as long as if they reach the 60 units, then you go to a maximum per unit that they would be paying. And they can take as many units as they want. Also, they don't need to declare major. Why? Because they know that the more classes that they take out of what they want to do, the more they're going to be paying at the end of the fourth semester, or the fourth semester. And then, of course, that discourages a student from enrolling in classes and then later drop the classes, because they know that if they enroll in a class, that's going to count against them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Could you hand the microphone to the woman in the green behind you?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Clegg, and I'm a student at Berkeley City College, also a senator for the California Senate. And I'm asking the council to please give thought to returning students. And I'm going to give you a little story about myself. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I feel that if you put a cap on that BOG waiver, it will eliminate me from going back to school. I started out at school at 18 years old. And I was going to school, and I went to junior college. And then I decided, well, I need to help my parents. They have a lot of children, and I need to go back to, I need to get a job. I was working part-time and going to school. The reason why I didn't finish school is because I was working 8 hours. My classes didn't get out until 10, did not have a car. I didn't get home until 12. Then I had to get up the next morning to be at my job for 8 o'clock in the morning. Totally impossible. But I was playing with the college system, and I built up some units. So finally, I decided that this was not going to work for me. I need to actually work. I worked, paid state taxes, paid federal taxes for 40-something years. Now I'm a returning student. Had to go and do those remedial classes, which you call basic skill classes, that applied to my units. They did not tell me this was going to apply to your units and hurt you. Yes, it did. So therefore, now I am capping out. I'm doing really well in my studies. I'm on the honor roll. I'm fighting hard for student advocacy. And with them putting a BOG waiver at 110, I won't be able to do nothing but go home and sit in my house and look for another job who's not going to be doing nothing for me. I want to be able to be successful, help the community out, and be the successful person that I am. I am strong. I have had teachers to say certain things to me to put me on different levels. But I'm telling you, if you decide to put a cap on that, which I hear you're saying, instead of saying student success, it sounds like you're saying students suffer.
There's one final question, and then the woman right here in the black with the white, black suit, white shirt.
Hi, I'm Shelley Glazer. I'm chair of the Older Adults Department at City College of San Francisco. I'm also part of the California Community College Educators of Older Adults. I just want to say that what we see people who are here to keep their minds active, to keep being productive members of the society, And they're coming to gain skills to put food on the table. This is what we see. I want to give you an additional 500 letters in addition to the 4,000 letters that were given by my colleagues in Southern California last week. And I thank you for reconsidering 4.1. And again, we'd like to ensure that older adults are going to be considered in this reconsideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was in Orange County and carried those 4,000 letters back with me, so that bag looks familiar there. So, well, we want to thank everybody for showing up and sticking around to hear out all the comments. I can assure you the task force has been listening intently, and I think the November 9th meeting reflects the fact that they are willing to take that input and try to improve this plan. Again, we appreciate your thoughts and involvement.